going on, everybody? Oh, beautiful, beautiful Thursday. I think. I haven't really gone out today, so I wouldn't know, but it's definitely better than it was the day before. It's very rainy and crappy. What's up, everybody? Let's see who's here. We've got Joffrey already. What's up? It says too early to chat. We got Wyatt Coverdale with tons of questions, tons of comments. We got Patchwork. We got Atropa. Who else do I got? And we've got Gogo. He says, what's up, Legend? Hi, Legend. How are you? We got Faustian I saw before. What's up, Faustian? Kelly Meadows. What's up, Kelly? And Astrological 999. Solora S. That's a name I haven't seen before. If I have, I forgot it. You remember Solora? I don't remember. I am sorry if I don't remember you, Solora, but I like the name.
Solora was there a few times.
Were they? Solar was there a few times. My wife says, I'm not good at tracking names. You can ask my wife. I'm good at like tracking people, just not names. Jose Munoz. I always say that wrong. Jose Munoz. Munoz. What's up, Jose? Yeah, so what's going on, everybody? I'm a little bit goofy tonight. You know, I'm not really too in the serious vibe tonight, even though, you know, a lot of people were enjoying my, my cover art there, that photograph that I found. Let's see. What's up, Atropa? Ava is Azel indeed. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So what are we going to talk about tonight, guys? We're going to talk about the fact that even more files have been released on the bird. I'm afraid to even say the word anymore. The word is the bird. The bird is the word. I'm a little bit afraid to bring this stuff up anymore on these. Well, this isn't neutral ground anymore, Highlander. This is it's, you know, we can't speak our mind anymore, anywhere except for maybe the bird. So I will say this much: when Elongate, we're going to call him that, Elongate decides to make it so that you can do long form video on the bird, then I will probably be doing more videos and stuff there. My only issue is that, well, it's mostly a political platform these days. If you go on the bird, there's not as much other content. I've asked people on there, like, who should I follow for stuff that's not just pure freaking, you know, political bullshit? Not that I don't like the political bullshit, but it's like, it's nothing but news about politics, and that's a little bit sad. But what is being revealed right now, I mean, can we just say, I fucking told you so? Not just me, because it didn't originate with me. It's something I learned and figured out from other people. Can we just say, we fucking told you so? Did anybody really doubt that social media was not just censoring people, but was doing it with hardcore, like, nefarious biases? We're not talking about like a bias like, oh, you know, I like chocolate and they like vanilla, so therefore anybody who posts things that about vanilla that I don't like, I'm just gonna kind of like shut it down. No. This was nefarious censorship. What's up, Zach? I see you, Solora. Yes, I'll try to remember you next time. I'm terrible with that game. Don't worry about it. I probably even said your name before and I forgot. This was nefarious censorship. This isn't just, you know, a little bit of bias and a little bit of stuff creeping in. This was intentionally hardcore, not, you know, this was like censorship on a level, like Atropa said, was this North Korea? In fact, if you look at our news media and everything else, it's basically becoming like China and North Korea. I remember I had someone that I knew from China a long time ago, and I asked them, you know, what they thought about this stuff. And they said, well, you can't trust the news. You can't trust the media at all. It's nothing but 24 hours a day of lies. Even the weather is suspect because they even infuse the weather with talking points and stuff. You can't even trust the fucking weather. So this whole situation, this whole system, is just absolute garbage. And the fact that people still don't see that, it's like they failed a very low bar entry IQ test. Like, we're not even talking like, and I don't mean IQ like, oh, they can't do math or something. I mean socio-political, spiritual IQ. They're completely like, there's this old, I don't remember who brought this up, who said it, who observed it, but there's this sort of observation that blue collar people, you know, typical working class people, generally know not to trust the system. They know not to trust the employer. They know not to trust the government. They know not to trust corporations or the news. They know intrinsically, it's built into their brains because they live in that serfdom level. They're the bottom planks of the pyramid, the bottom, you know, blocks of the pyramid. They know not to trust the system, right? But they can't articulate exactly why. They lack the education, they lack the experience, they're not on the inside. So they lack the education and ability, not always, but just as a general rule, to articulate exactly why you should not trust the system. They have anecdotal evidence. They see the world from the ground level and they know, don't trust the man, right? But a lot of these more educated, white-collar, office drone types, the normies out there, the 401k white picket fence, you know, especially the ones with trust funds and all this crap. Those people, they have the education, but they're brainwashed by that education. They have the ability to verbalize the problem, but they lack the down-to-earth, common sense reality, the wisdom to recognize what's going on. Now that sounds a little classist. Let's make sure that we understand that there are exceptions to both sides of that rule. So by and large, you find this schism in society between people who realize you can't trust the system and people who literally rely upon that system for everything. And so they implicitly trust it, even when they shouldn't, even when they know better. They'll even tell you to your face, I know you can't trust the system, and then they'll sign on to more of the system. So this isn't going to be just like politics tonight, guys. This is a spiritual thing. People need to realize, well, they say realize, 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 right? You know that one? Realize, realize, realize. People who are of a certain spiritual awareness, you can deceive them just like anybody. That's not the point. But people with a certain spiritual awareness, they are programmed, if you will, by that awareness to sort of recognize that, well, Jose said we live in a matrix. That's like one of the first major realizations of any spiritual ontology, is to recognize the, if nothing else, whether you become a non-dualist or you remain a dualist, to recognize the unreality, the illusory nature, the matrix-like phantasm, the simulacrum of reality. So that's one of the first things you realize. This is not wholly real. That doesn't mean it doesn't represent something real, but it's not wholly real. And that's one of the early realizations. And with that realization comes the whole civilization is just another mask. It's just another lie. We as human beings live in a nested fiction. Lie upon lie upon lie upon lie. And disillusionment with those lies is a major part of spiritual awakening. If your spiritual awakening just has you go become a Pollyanna, you know, pie in the sky, everything's wonderful, everything's love and light, even when you're being murdered and all this other stuff. If you live in this weird Pollyanna world, that's not enlightenment, that's not liberation either. Real liberation means you recognize just how bad it is and you don't suffer it. You fully recognize what's going on. You may not be able to recognize, you know, the specificity of what's going on, but you know that you can't trust it. one of the things that happens is with that realization, if you don't also realize the divine nature of what you really are, that realization actually becomes a deeper matrix. In other words, to realize reality isn't real, but not realize your divinity leads to a nihilistic perspective. You go, oh, everything's fake. I can't trust everything. And, you know, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, Patchwork. Thank you for the 2 beans. He says, nothing is true. Everything is permanent. I think he meant everything's permitted, but maybe he did mean permanent. Everything's timeless and permanent. Actually, it's impermanent, depending upon how you look at it. But yes, nothing is true. Everything is permitted. I have a variation of that. It's a little bit of a variation of it, which is, if all is divine, then nothing is forbidden. It's kind of the same thing, by the way. Because then if nothing is true, everything is permitted means if everything that you take as doctrine, everything you take as real is not real, because none of it is, this is all illusion, then everything is permitted. That means there's no rules, there's no limits. You can do and be anything. Okay, so in a similar vein, if all is divine, nothing is forbidden. If nothing is objectively forbidden, that means even what these assholes are doing is permitted too. The people who are censoring you on the bird, that's permitted too. Yes, it is. It's not forbidden. And they know this. The hidden masters who run that side of the equation know that. They employ these people that are very easy to manipulate, using sexual things, using addictions, using blackmail. They get these people and they put them into positions of power because they can own them. There's an old saying that I got off a movie once that says, I don't need to own the mine. I just need to own the person who owns the mine, and then the gold is mine. Yes, Shiva! Shiva, the Hindu incarnation of Lucifer in many ways. I equate them subtly, not exactly. Definitely subtly. They're subtly equated. Shiva and Lucifer. Some would argue that that's not the case. It really depends on whether your version of Lucifer is like a Satan figure or not, specifically. You know, is it like the evil? If it's the evil, then Shiva can't be that, but... Oh my goodness, Pat, you didn't have to blow $10 to just correct a typo, dude. Holy crap. Thank you, brother. He said, lol, oops, I meant permitted, and to reject owns divinity is like committing forever sleep in a spiritual... Yes. Well, except you can't really forever reject it. That's why it's a delusion. You can wake up to that delusion either way. It's just, it's a lot easier to wake up to that delusion while you're still alive. In this, you know, when I say alive, I mean while you're still embodied, while consciousness is still centered in this illusion. It's easier to wake up there. It doesn't hurt as much, and it's not as abrupt. But when that awakening is forced on you because the body finishes, you no longer can follow this train of thought, if you will. Once this story ends, then ouch, that's a sudden drop. And that drop is traumatic, and that traumatic drop causes, well, doesn't cause anything, actually, because that's a misappropriation of language here. Cause and effect doesn't apply to the divine the same way, because the divine is all causes. It's the uncaused cause, right? So you can't cause the divine to be anything. You can't cause reality to do anything. Nature has no laws and no rules behind it, because nature is the law. It is the rule. Right? All the laws and rules of society and science are a precipitate of nature. They are not ruling over nature. There is no law of gravity that rules nature. Nature rules the law of gravity. And so in a similar sense, you cannot be caused to reincarnate or to stop incarnating. There's no cause and effect there. It is all will. And will isn't free or otherwise. It is the Tao. It is just pure. So in that sense, again, we recognize that this whole idea that these assholes running things they're not exactly evil in the sense like, you know, there's no objective evil. We can say subjectively or culturally they're evil, sure. Whew. I had one of those like half sneezes, like I was about to sneeze and I stopped. Asariel, what's up, brother? It's been a little minute. What's going on, brother? Larissa Tybark or a serial Crobat. Say it however you want. Just don't forget the guy. Hope you're okay over there. I hear Germany is having some issues with energy and stuff. I hope you're all right, brother. I haven't seen you in a little while. We should chit-chat again. That would be fun. But yes, I am glad you're still alive. You know, I've fallen off the wagon of creating content and stuff a lot lately. It's just, there's just too much real world stuff on my mind. And I have, you know, really the biggest thing for me has been trying to get this book going, you know, with all the thousands and thousands of words that I've got done, that's going to be redone and reinvented and refigured out. You know, there's a part of me that's just going like, maybe you should just not, you know, maybe you should just not write this next book. Maybe you should just write a blank page and sell that, you know? Because I sit here and I look at the world and I go, well, what does it serve except vanity and money for me? You know, I don't feel like it's going to matter much longer in a lot of ways, you know? The times are a-coming, you know? Times of hardship are a-coming. So do with that as you will. Doesn't mean I won't write it. It's just, you know, it makes me wonder. Makes me wonder. Oh, Jose, I like writing stuff like that. I write 1,000 words in like a minute. No, but for real, I do write very quickly. I think when I write at my full blast, it's somewhere in the range of like 130 to 170 words a minute. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, my finger, like I break keyboards, even the good ones. People wonder I have like finger pain. But someone asked about my books. Who was that? Who asked about my book? As I saw it and I didn't comment because I was introducing and saying hello to everybody. Someone said, where's your book so I can throw money at you? Well, anyway, my books can all be found in the description of this video. If you go to the Linktree link in the description of this video, you will find a link to all my books on Amazon, and that's where you can pick them up. You know, they're a pretty good deal right now. I lowered the prices not too long ago. It used to be $34 for my main book. Now it's $24. I think it's like $8 and $12 or something like that for the other ones. So that's right, Naruto. What's up? He says, what's up, DH? Yeah, people losing their minds. I freaking hate phones, Atropa. Atropa, like, I gotta tell you, phones are... I forget how many years ago. I was a late adopter of phones. Like, you can ask my wife. My wife had a phone long before I did. I didn't even have, like, a flip phone. I was phoneless for a long-ass time. And then I just decided to buy, like, a burner phone. I don't remember when. It was, like, 2008 or something. I don't remember when. It was a long time ago. But I was a late adopter of phone technology. And, you know, over the years, it's become, like anybody else, an attachment of my life. It's not quite to the point where my phone is something that I'm scared of not having with me or letting other people necessarily look at, although I do sometimes get a little uncomfortable, but it's not like I have anything on there that's really, like, you know, incriminating. It's just like, that's my phone, you know? But honestly, phones are disgusting. Like, I've gotten to the point where it's like, they are for all the benefits that they give us, the cons definitely outweigh the pros. And the only reason that we don't dispense with them I think as a society and as a people and as individuals, is because they're very useful. And they're not useful just to us, they're useful to the powers that be who put them in our hands. You know, a lot of people have said like, oh, I would refuse the mark of the beast, right? Like a lot of Christians will say, I would refuse the mark of the beast. I wouldn't take the mark in my hand or on my forehead. I wouldn't do it. And they always equate the mark to technology, you know, like credit or Social Security or your phone or something. And a lot of people have said like, you know, oh, we would never let 1984 become real. I'd never let them put a computer chip in my brain or something. Well, they don't have to put a computer chip in your brain. They put a computer chip in your hand in the form of a phone. And it's pretty much like you demand it. Like it's not a thing where they got to force you to do it. 9 out of 10 people, if not more, I'd probably say more than that. 99 out of 100 people. No, maybe 999,000 out of a million. All insist upon having a phone at all times. Sorry to interrupt, people can't even walk without, you know, staring at their phone. Oh yeah, Sariel, if in case I misspeak, I'm saying I didn't have a cell phone. I meant I didn't have a smartphone. I had a house phone. Yeah, I obviously had a house phone, but I didn't have a cell phone, no. And you know, I have been saying for like 2 years now, as I'm trying to write my book stuff, today was like a rare treat because I was home alone and I kind of like managed to avoid 90% of everything that distracts me. Like I looked at it like over lunch and stuff. And I didn't quite get a lot of writing done, but I did feel the writing coming back, you know? But I've said for a while now that what I really need is like a month at a cabin in the woods with as little internet as I can get, but still be able to access like Wikipedia and things that give me information that I need that I can't get anywhere else. Not that Wikipedia is that good, by the way. I just mean like as an example, you know, if I want to look up something about something, if I want to look up, especially like thesaurus and stuff like that, I need to use the computer for that. So it's really a pain in the ass. It's really a pain in the ass because it gets habitual where I click. So what I've taken to doing lately is the social media sites that give me the biggest problems, I bury in bookmark folders and I occasionally move them around so I don't know where they are. I have to go find them. So it's not just a simple matter of like the same habitual mouse movements to go open, because I get so bad that I don't even need to look at the screen. I just move my mouse, click, 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 and whatever, you know, has my attention for social media just pops up. And I don't like it. Like I hate that shit. And I find myself, you know, between like two extremes, getting addicted to it and being extremely at arm's length with it. And when I say at arm's length with it, I mean my own real self doesn't get involved in it. My business self does, my political self does, but me as my real self, not D.H. Thorne, and when I say my real self, I mean my human identity, doesn't get involved in it. My real life, you don't see much of that. You see very little. I don't like my real life being online anymore. You know, my real name, it's hard to get. You see my wife, you may have seen my son, you know, in Discord or whatever. You may have seen people that I know, but you'll never know the full detail. Yeah. What's up, Jen? Good to see ya. She's called us nerds. I think she said nerds. She said, did you say what's up, nerds? Yeah, what's up, nerds. What's up, Jen? Good to see you. Yes, yes, Solora. It is like yeah, I'm like a street thug with a burner phone. Yeah, I like saying a burner phone though, because it's pretty much just something you can throw away. That's why I like those. But DH, it stands for Dick Hammer. It can. Yep. Absolutely. That's right, Wyatt. That's the only reason to have this stuff. But here's the problem, especially you as a Gen Z kid, you don't know. By the way, Dick Hammer on a Thor's Day? Interesting. By a guy named Thorne, which is... Wyatt's covered this a million times. He likes making a big deal out of all the Thor references on my live streams. He makes a big deal out of that once in a while. But you know, honestly, as a Gen Z kid, luckily you guys still hang out and do stuff in real life, but it's nowhere near the degree it was when I was a kid. We didn't have online options when I was a kid. We started to, but even when we did, we still went over each other's houses to do it. You know, it was like we didn't sit around FaceTiming each other. If you wanted to see your friend, you had to call them and go hang out with them. And a lot of the times, because we didn't have that, we had not just more social time, but the intimacy was different. You know, your friends could just show up. They didn't have to call. You know, you kind of had it so like your friends could just show up. And that just was better. Like you just had a more intimate relationship, I think. When I say intimate, I don't mean you necessarily knew each other's deeper details. That's a form of intimacy. When I say intimacy, I mean like you'd let them into your home, your life. They were not just privy to your online life. They were privy to you. They could just show up, throw rocks at your door in the middle of the night, you know, rocks at your window in the middle of the night, and you could climb out on your roof and freaking talk to them like I used to do when I was a teenager. What's that? Jose says somebody put my picture on a Facebook meme. Oh yeah? Were they really dissing me? Was that the one where they accused me of being a Nazi and were making fun of VK at the same time? I remember like that was in the Become a Living meme, the EA Quetting one, and someone put a picture of me looking like the bad guy from Toy Story, and I think VK, and they were calling us Nazis or something. It was the most like just stupid thing ever. Like I'd be offended if it wasn't just so blatantly just like they're reaching like so bad. I mean, some people, you know, when you have haters, when you're like, you know, an online personality, someone's going to hate you. Like there's certain channels where I'm sure they have very few haters, like Foolish Fish, Esoterica, what's her name? Anna's Symposium. I'm sure they don't have a lot of haters, right? I'm not saying they don't have any, but I'm sure they don't have many. But some people like me, you know, we're prone to having more haters because we don't tell people what they want to hear. So Jose, what do you mean you called him out on it? What's wrong with memeing me? Was it really bad? Was it like a picture of like my wiener that wasn't in a picture or something? Like what was it? Now I'm curious. I don't know if I want to know. It's like morbid curiosity, but I don't really know. Like I'm sure there's a million of them out there. No, I'm sure there's at least one or two. I know of at least the one. So that's right, Cyril. You just go to their house. Yeah. See, that's why like I wish like some of you people, I wish we all lived in the same neighborhood or something, because I think we'd all be hanging out a lot and we'd probably have that relationship where it would be just throw pebbles at my window and we'll hang out. So. But yeah, they want to maneuver more and more of your life into the virtual space. And that is so that they can control you more easily. The more of your life is dependent upon an online presence, the more they can control your life by controlling that online presence. That's the whole point of everything that they're doing. You know, the vast majority of people need to be deeply embedded online so that your relationships, your money, everything, your livelihood, if possible, is tied to your social account. And Meta's going to do it. And Twitter was going to do it. But Twitter's now going to be part of the everything app that Elon is doing. And that will have an effect. I have a feeling he is going to probably do that. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe he won't allow social credit scores or some version of that, but he's going to create an everything app where it does everything and you'd be stupid not to use it. I can see that coming a million miles away. Whether you think Elon's a good guy or a bad guy, I'm sure a lot of people would say both. A lot of people would say he's a good guy. A lot of people would say he's a bad guy. I think some people say he's a bad guy just because he's rich. I think some people say he's a good guy just because he did something right about Twitter recently. People are dumb. You know, human beings are dumb. We look at things in such black and white tones that's just dumb. Nobody's good. Nobody's evil. Nobody's all one way or the other. Nobody's your hero. No one's going to save you, and nobody's a villain going to destroy you. It's all part of just a flow of things. And some people have it out for you and some don't. And if you trust Elon, you're dumb. And if you think he's evil, you're dumb. It's sort of one of those things where you should be skeptical of everybody. You should be skeptical of everybody. It doesn't matter who they are, be it Trump, Alex Jones, Elon, Biden. It doesn't matter who it is. You should be constantly questioning them. Anybody who wants power, takes power, accepts power without a fight, they should be questioned. They should always be something you have skepticism about. That's sort of the point of the meme that I use for the video. Don't tell me what to do. That's a form of skepticism because you're skeptical of the intentions of the people telling you what to do, even if it's something nice. When someone says, have a nice day, really? Why do you want me to have a nice day? What's up, Malachi? Malachi says, where's my juggalos at? I'm in Australia, so I only get to see my fam through the internet. I feel that, dude. I feel really bad. Maybe you're loving Australia, but man, everything that happened, from the beer plague, dude, like some parts of Australia, I think other parts were fine, right? I think like certain parts of Australia went like really, really tyrannical about it, while others were kind of, just kind of hands off about it. But I mean, honestly, all of this stuff, you guys need to watch a 90s movie called Johnny Mnemonic. And in Johnny Mnemonic, a lot of it's coming true. It's quite interesting. They actually, and I think Johnny Mnemonic was originally a book that was part of the stuff that became other books of cyberpunk genre stuff. But Johnny Mnemonic in particular had a couple things right. And one of the things that it had right was the illness that was going around that was basically caused by technology, or so they said. And it was kind of like the dopamine thing. Like someone said, dopamine destroyer is the internet. It's totally true. And in Johnny Mnemonic, it caused neurological problems. Like you get the shakes and all this other stuff, but there was a cure for it. I never tell you what the cure is. That's not important. That's the MacGuffin, that's sort of the widget that everybody's trying to get. But a lot of that movie is coming true. Corporations pretty much run the world. Countries are kind of over. If you know what's going on, if your finger's on the pulse of the world, you know that countries stop being that important almost around the time of those movies. Like the movie Network, that came out in what, 80 or 70? I think it was 80 something. It's like early 80s, I think. And at that point, it was already true that the whole idea of countries was already kind of over. Countries are just, they're like the service industry for corporations, whether they be a communist country or not. People are like, oh, I believe in socialism and communism, and that's what I want. Okay, fine. I totally disagree with you, but okay, fine. Government is just a big corporation. It's just the biggest corporation. And it's a facilitator corporation for other corporations. So you don't like corporations and all that stuff. Government ain't here to help you. Government's the worst of all the corporations. And they're all bad intrinsically. None of them should be trusted with anything. They should be trusted to do what corporations do. They are there solely to print money for their owners. That's pretty much all they're for. What's up, Vril? Is Vril fleshy? People are asking if Vril's fleshy. He might be. I don't think it is, though. Fleshy did say he'd want to come on again soon. Yeah, I got to get him on again. He's been busy. I've been busy. Hasn't really come up much. We hang out on Fridays mostly. But a lot of that movie came through. A lot of that movie came true in a lot of ways. And a lot more of it's gonna come true. How much? Tough to say. You know, I think that the future is, I could see it going one of two ways. Way number one is the hidden masters get their way. The current hidden masters, the ones that are running a lot of things, they'll end up with near hegemonic total control over human life, like they've kind of already have, but it will be more out in the open, that control, and people will accept it because humans by nature are a slave species. You know, we're pack animals, which means that the majority of us want to serve somebody, whether we admit it or not. The majority of us do want to serve and be submissive to a higher authority. A handful of us don't, and a smaller handful of us, whether we want to lead or not, we just take over. Well, the people who have that drive to power will be either brought to heel, destroyed, or are already part of the system. These slaves will remain slaves. So that is one version of that story that I see happening. And it's sort of like Alex Jones's worst nightmares, mostly coming true, about 80% coming true. I think it'll be a little bit less sci-fi compared to what Alex Jones makes it sound like. And you know, the thing is, people say like, oh, that's conspiracy theory. Not anymore. You shouldn't say that. I could understand 4 years ago, 5 years ago, if I was talking like this, a lot of people would say, you sound nuts, Thorne. That's not going to happen. After the last 2 or 3 years, you can be skeptical of what I'm saying, but you can't deny it as a very real possibility. Now, I'm not a fan of Alex Jones. I want to make this clear. I am not a fan. It's not to say that I wasn't at one point in my life. I am not currently a fan of Alex Jones. Whether he's legitimate or not, sincere or not, controlled opposition or not, I don't know. I think that he served his purpose if he was on the good guy side, and I don't think there is a good guy side, but let's say there's a good guy side. He may have been on that side once upon a time. Maybe in his heart he still is. I don't know. But I don't trust him an inch. Not an inch at this point. Either he's been completely co-opted by everything that happened with his lawsuit, and so he plays the game that they want, or he's lost his mind just because. I mean, everything he's seen. So we're not looking forward to Alex Jones being proven wrong in the end. On Alex Jones's grave, again, this is coming from someone who does not necessarily like Alex Jones. A little too much of what he said is coming true, isn't it? I'm going to say what I've always said. If half of what Alex Jones says is right, we're 100% fucked. And he's more than half right. Way more than half right. Way more than half right. Gay frogs is serious. You know what's ironic is the gay frogs thing, while it's hyperbolic, it's not wrong. In fact, it's right for a couple of reasons. Frogs will change their gender based upon the the environment. Yes, it's true. Frogs can change, certain frogs. They can change genetically, whether they're boys or they can literally change from boys to girls and girls to boys based on the environment. And one of the factors of the environment are certain hormonal influencing chemicals that are put into water. So yes, they do put stuff in the water, whether it's on purpose or inadvertently, that can trigger, changes in their gender. But here's another thing. Here's where he wasn't wrong. You can look this stuff up. There is a Dr. Swan. I can't remember if it's Sandra. I forget. I think it's Sandra Swan. You can look it up. Dr. Swan. She's a fertility doctor, and she's been sounding the alarm for a little while now about fertility rates in especially the West. That's right, Faustine. All you got to do is look at the Epstein case. I mean, that's it. That's all the proof you need. Patrick says, I don't know, man. I called a lot of his stuff happening about 7 or 8 years. Yeah, exactly. I was following him for about 12 years or so. And for the first 3 or 4 years, I was a fan. I mostly agreed to him. I mostly agreed with what he was saying, or at least I should say, when I say agreed with, I mean, there's the caveat that I knew that most of what he was saying was hyperbolic. And I also knew that most of what he was saying was fallible information-wise, because we're talking about a situation where the other side doesn't want you to know. See, this is one of the things that crops up in discussions about all of these things with people, is that you have a certain group of people who want proof, and I don't blame them. They're skeptics, and that's the right position to be in always. However, there are certain types of information which are not discernible through direct means. You have to use other means to discern the truth. In the case of what we're talking about, you have to use a priori reasoning. You have to look at a situation. You have to be able to read between the lines, see the pattern, and see what it's adding up to. So, for example, when you're home alone and you hear a window break, do you have to visually confirm that someone's breaking into your house before you take up arms or flee just to be safe? No, of course not. Window broken, good chance something bad's going down. At the very least, I got a broken window, and that's concerning. But what would break my window except for someone doing it on purpose, or some very, rare. How many times do you get a broken window just from the weather or something? And not saying it's zero, but it's pretty close to zero. Maybe the wind will knock a branch into your window or something like that. So you hear a broken window, and then you hear like maybe some cursing or something. You don't need to see the person breaking into your house to know. But you get confronted when you tell people that there is a global conspiracy to XYZ. There is this impossible hurdle for a lot of people. From that's an entertaining possibility to it's really happening. And you will find that when that conspiracy serves them in some way at the moment, when they think it's their party or their race or their country doing it, people, because of their tribalistic nature, will overlook the overwhelming, obvious a priori evidence, and will insist that it's not what you think, or they'll just turn their nose up at it. When George Bush was president, you could not convince Republicans that George Bush was a bad guy doing New World Order stuff, even though he literally said it. When Obama was president, doing the things that he was doing, all the Republicans were on board with the fact that he wasn't a real U.S. citizen and he's a New World Order globalist and he's horrible and evil, but you couldn't convince a single Democrat. Meanwhile, just a few years earlier, all the Democrats were saying 9/11 was an inside job. Go back in time. Any of you who are old enough, go back in time. Who were the ones who were the most vocal about 9/11 being an inside job, whatever that means? Was it Republicans? No. It was mostly liberals. Those are the liberals I liked, by the way. And then somewhere along the line, because they switched it to a different party and a different game, a lot of those people just sort of said, well, we beat the evil. The Bushes are gone. So we cleaned up the system and we got control of it and, you know, blah, 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 blah. They just kind of went back to sleep because it's tribalism for a lot of people. Some people only wake up because of tribalism, and it takes something extraordinary for them to fall out of that even. But here's another nuance of truth. The vast majority of humanity is just misinformed, uninformed. They're not paying attention. But the number of people that are paying attention and getting informed is more than ever before. It's basically mainstream now to know that the WEF and all this other stuff is all coordinated against free civilization, whether you think that's Western values or some other. Everybody knows it. It's becoming really, really obvious, isn't it? Now, here's the problem on top of everything else. Alex Jones told you what was going on that was wrong, and a lot of us knew what was going on. We beat the drum and we sounded the alarm, and we went around the world telling you this is what's really happening. And a lot of you guys didn't pay attention. You fell right back asleep. Fair enough. But you know what really sucks? There's no solution that we've offered. How many of us have a solution to it? How many people have an actual solution to what they're doing? Can you name any, like Alex Jones? Does he have a solution? What's Alex Jones' solution? Just to tell everybody? That's fine. You got to start somewhere, and being informed is the first step. You know, you got to admit you have a problem in order to fix it. But we need some sort of a plan at this point. Somebody better have a plan. If we take this situation at face value, we're fucked. I'm just going to tell you straight up right now. If you take things at face value, if all you can do is look at the superficial information, even with what you believe, like there's a conspiracy and blah, 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 at face value, we're completely fucked. It's over. There's no point in even resisting. There's no point in resisting tyranny at all because they've already got it sewn up and we're just going through the motions. But if you're good at a priori reasoning, you realize this game's only getting started. And the other side is not happy because too many of us know. Too many of us know and have already committed to stopping it. It's not like it's a couple million people or even a billion people. It's like a third of the planet knows, has figured it out. They want to create the perception that nobody gets it. They want you to feel alone. Jen, they want you to feel alone. Wyatt, they want you to feel alone. Atropa, they want you to feel alone. Like you're the only person who sees it. And they do everything that they possibly can to make it uncool to see it. To make it embarrassing to say that you know. To scare you into being quiet. They've got enough people brainwashed, especially with the cancel culture stuff, that you shouldn't open your mouth. They demote your posts on Facebook, on Twitter, at least until recently, on YouTube. They make your life hell if you don't play by their rules. And the rules that they have, the games you want to play may be completely innocuous, but they don't fit their system, and so you get crushed. I know a lot of people who in 2020 were literally, because of tribalistic reasons, started hating me just because I admitted that I was going to vote for Trump. That became like this thing, like, you know, like, dude, a vote is not a Valentine's Day card. I don't love the man. It's a strategic move. It's like a chess move. You've got to look at it like, okay, this person versus this person, this one represents something I would rather have over the alternative. And you also have to think of it, maybe I'm just used to like martial arts and things where you have high percentage moves and low percentage moves. You know, a low percentage move would have been for me to vote for Ron Paul or Rand Paul or something, do a write-in. That's not going to work. So I got to go with the one that I think has a shot. It sucks it's a two-party system, don't get me wrong. I've voted third party many times. But in this particular instance, the best option to throw a monkey wrench into their system is a lunatic like the Orange Cheeto. Whether you love him or not, I don't think he's genuine at all. Do I think he's evil? I don't know. I don't think he's genuine. I don't think I think that he A/B tests a lot of stuff. I think that he knows what's going on. I think he knows globalism is a real thing. And I think that he is putting up a fight against it for whatever reason, and it serves him and it serves us too. So I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, right? This is a thing that happens in all cultures. It's called a purity test. We all fall for purity tests. You got Wyatt talking about, like, you know, homosexual stuff and blah, blah, blah. We've got all these little issues that we see as purity tests. And if someone doesn't pass the purity test, we don't want to know them or we don't want to support them. Now, obviously, I don't do that very much. Everybody does. Like, there is no zero. Everybody does it a little bit. But I'm surrounded by people that I don't agree with. You know, I got Jen, for example. Jen, again, not to single you out, Jen, but Jen, we don't agree on certain political things. I think we agree in spirit. I think we agree in the, you know, leave people alone spirit. I think we agree, and that's why we're friends. We agree on that fundamental principle. And we just go about it slightly differently. So I'm not into the purity test thing. Jen doesn't have to be pure for me to respect her or like her or want her in my community. But a lot of people do. And that's how you know things are getting crazy, because the purity test shit is becoming so overwhelming and everywhere. And that's how you can tell that people are being brainwashed with tribalistic bullshit. Because they see someone who they might otherwise agree with 9 times out of 10, but that one time that they disagree is enough to make them turned off to them forever. Take someone controversial like Jordan Peterson. There's people who can't watch even a minute of what he says because of something that they don't like that he said. Maybe they would agree with 60% of what he says, but they don't agree with that 40%, and so they shut him down. We all do this. Again, I am not denying my own capacity in this. Take Vaush, for example. I won't give him the time of day. People have tried to show me his videos. They're like, you agree with this? I don't care. Oh, don't apologize, Wyatt. I'm being goofy with you. People like Vaush, I won't give the time of day. I don't want to hear a word he says because I know he's disingenuous. I'm sure he's right plenty of the time. He's obviously very educated, very good at making arguments. There's no question. Some of those arguments are sophist, you know, bullshit and disingenuous. Doesn't mean he's not good at arguing. Some people come prepared to their arguments. I would say he's probably one of them. That doesn't mean I think he's right. You can win every argument and still be wrong. That's the thing about truth. Truth is independent of argument or what you can prove. Truth is truth. It's like the whole idea of natural laws. There are no laws to nature. Nature is the law. If there was a law, that's the law. Nature is the law. That's the only law there is. I don't blame you on Ben Shapiro, sir. I don't agree with him on much. Not much at all. Even when we agree, I still look at him and go, you little fucking gremlin piece of shit. My political views are summed up by that meme. I just want gay married couples to be able to defend their pot farm with fully automatic AK-47s. Is that so much to ask? Everything else is up to you. So it's like, you know, even when I agree with some people, I can still look at them and go, you're a piece of crap who I hate and I don't like, and I think you're wrong. You know what I mean? And Ben Shapiro is very near the top of that list. Honestly, like he's just, ugh, he's just gross. He's like a gross elf. What? Jen, I think I skipped the line here. Jen, something about gay space. What was it? Not fully automated gay space communism. Okay. I just want the asteroid to be a surprise. I guess that's what you're talking about. Let's see. Vrill's saying a lot. All right, let me go through some comments. What do you guys want me to talk about? I'm talking too much politics tonight. What do you guys want me to talk about? You guys want me to keep talking about the real world shit? Can you find some ways I can turn it to spirituality, or do you want me to talk about something else? That's right, Malachi, and I agree that variety is the spice of life. But there are certain things are existential, aren't they? Existential differences do exist. So, for example, if someone wants to ban all firearms, right? It's not like it's a black and white, like I can't talk to them at all, but that's a hard pass for me, because to me, if you want to ban something that I consider to be a human right, to me, it's morally equivalent. Not that I'm a moralist, but it's morally equivalent from an ethical, logical reasoning standpoint. It's a moral equivalent to wanting to bring back slavery days or eradicate the First Amendment, and you shouldn't have free speech. That's, to me, it's a hard pass. It's not really something I'm willing to even debate. It's like, this is already decided for me. You know, do you need to have a national conversation on whether pedophilia is okay or not? Do we need that national conversation? Or can we all, who are sane, rational human beings, say, yeah, we don't want little kids getting turned into sexual objects? Yeah, you could examine why. You could definitely have an ethical, philosophical discussion about why it's okay or why it's not okay. You could have that conversation. But that conversation isn't a conversation of whether it shouldn't be okay or not, or should be okay or not. It's just, what are the nuances of it? Like, it's examining it. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's like an autopsy almost. Vrill asks, what are portals? Okay, so portals, it really depends. I mean, portals to me are, I like to call them paradigm gates. That's one word for them that I'll use occasionally. Portals to me are ways for your cosmic consciousness to shift its perceptual focus from one paradigm of reality to another. You could call it a timeline or a paradigm, either way. When these shifts occur, you go through a portal. And these portals are not literally like holes in the wall. They're a path. They're almost like in the woods when you have like a portal of trees on one side and a portal of trees. That's what I mean by a portal. So it's like a path. So portals can take almost any form. It could be a picture you look at. It could be a movie you saw. It could be a conversation you had. It could be a ritual you did. It could be a night's sleep that you had. It could be a dream. Anything can be a portal. In fact, every moment is a portal. But there's specific kinds of portals. There's portals that you can consciously, you're aware that something shifted. You're aware that because of whatever this was a fork in the road. That's your portal. High ass magic question. Are we equal in our ability to practice? I mean, practice, we're all equal, right? I mean, fundamentally, if you have the faculties, if you have hands, feet, eyes, mouth, blah, 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 you can practice anything. The question is, can everybody achieve it? Now, potentiality wise, I don't believe in this whole there's muggles and there's not muggles and all this, like, I think that's just bullshit. People read too much Harry Potter and they get it in their head that some people are born for magic and some are not. That's not to say that people don't have hardships or difficulties, but coming from this pantheistic, non-dual sort of perspective, it's more a question not of who can and who can't. It's a matter of, is the divine in that incarnation, does it have the will to do those things? Because really all magic is a form of revelation. If you really understand what magic is doing, or what magic is non-specific. Magic is like an art form. Magic is something that reveals, it communicates and reveals to the practitioner and those who are witness to it, etc. And it's not limited to just bibbidi bobbidi boo, now I got a brand new pair of shoes. It could be bibbidi bobbidi boo, I realize I'm God. It could be bibbidi bobbidi boo, I have now integrated my shadow. Magic it's one of those words that doesn't mean anything. I know that there are definitions for it. Aleister Crowley said, I think it was something, it's an acausal way to cause change or something like that. Fine, fair. If that's what you want it to be, that's cool. But I think that's a really limited understanding of magic. I think magic really, this is why I sort of fallen out of favor with using the word magic I still use it for colloquial reasons, but internally I don't really use it. It's more of an external thing that I say to get a point across. But magic to me is more of a form of art. It's more of like an art. It's like a performance art. It's about transcendental realization. Even when you're doing a jar spell to banish somebody or something, that's a form of revelation. It's a form of transcendence. You're not, I know that you will have, from your personal frame of experience, you will have the experience of something causal happening. I filled the jar with nails and with some yellow jacks, and I peed in it, and I put a picture of my enemy with his birthday and his name on it, and I screwed it together and I glued it together, and nobody's getting in it, and I chucked it in a river, and I turned my back on it and I walked away. It's like one of the simplest, jar spells you can do. None of those things do anything. It's just some inanimate objects. But by doing that action, that was a paradigm gain. By doing that set of actions, you set up a situation where if that person experiences some kind of a negative act, or you never see them again, you get a mysterious, coincidental, synchronistic miracle in which, for some weird reason, throwing a jar of nails into fast-moving water and walking away seemed like it caused something to happen, but that's not really what happened. That's why Aleister Crowley wisely said it's not causal, it's acausal. Because there's no direct line between what you did and the thing that happened. So could you say that that jar caused anything? It's acausal, so there by definition, it caused nothing. So what did it do? Maybe this is why Aleister Crowley was right, if we take it literally. It doesn't cause anything to happen. It's acausal. It's an acausal way to manifest, to bring into experience something. To manifest doesn't mean to cause, it means to reveal. So magic is a form of revelation. I know that there's different traditions that say differently, it's fine. But if we're talking Hermetics, what I'm saying is totally true. If we're talking about the Hermetic principles, you understand all is mind, okay? Hermetic principles is just like a Western-oriented version of, I'm not saying they're all the same, but they're all kind of pointing to the same broad category of pantheistic, non-dual. You can explain it a million different ways, but that source realization is the same throughout. People go into a deep trance, whether it be chemical induced or meditative induced or both, or some other combination, or pain or drunkenness, whatever. They go into this transcendent space. They realize that they are not this, that this is just something that they're dreaming about, that their real nature is something inexplicable, indefinable. It's what we call consciousness, awareness, but consciousness is not what you are. Consciousness is the nature of what you are. What you are is indefinable. It's ineffable. It cannot be described. There is no word for it. It's not one, it's not two, it's not many. It's non-dual. It exists, but only in so far as it doesn't not exist. Existence is a weird meaning when that's all there is too. Because non-existence can't be a thing, can it? So if all there is existence, you can't say it's existence because there's no alternative to existence. So you can't say it exists either. You know, when we say like, oh, you are the non-dual source, you're God, you're this and that, that's, even that's a linguistic flaw. You know, when you hear New Age people saying all is one, well, if all is one, you've heard me do the infinite cube before. If all is one, and nothing else exists but that one, then even that one is logically inaccurate. You can't have a one without the possibility of a two or a three or even a zero. In order to have a one, you have to have the potential for more than one. So if there can only be that one, ooh, I just got chills, Highlander. There can be only one. It's in everything. It's like the universe or the New World Order or whoever. It's like, this is one of the things that you need to know. And even they don't want to hide it. It's in everything. If you look in the right places, it's hinted at and shown everywhere. The Bible says it. It's just whenever they've said it, they countermand it. So people have all of these different traditions that are really just different ways of trying to say the same thing. And magic is one of the ways, magic as we think of it, as a Western tradition. It would be Tantra or potentially yoga, depending upon how you like to talk about it. In India. It would be, you know, look, every culture's got some form of magic. Every culture's got some form of magic. Every single one, even scientists. I know that sounds insane, but yes. Look, I've known scientists that believe in luck like anybody else. They have their little lucky games that they'll play. Like the most rational people will still go around and they'll still do things as rituals, hoping that it will, you know. You know what? One of my problems with science, and this is something Terence McKenna brought up. One of my problems with science, I think it was Terence McKenna, was that science, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an anti-science person. But that it presumes that you can reach the same starting conditions and thus prove something. In other words, if I drop this object, we know it will always fall. And if I put it to the same exact position, theoretically, I keep moving my hand, but theoretically, if I keep dropping from the same position, it will pretty much, if I can get the exact same beginning, it will pretty much do the same thing every time, except we know that every moment is slightly different than the one before it, and nothing is really the same. So from a large perspective, a large scale, this looks the same, right? It's pretty much falling exactly the same way every time. However, all of the atoms and molecules in this object, they're moving and wiggling. They're not the same. That's totally different. Everything. Totally different every time. There's nothing the same about that. So you can never actually get to the same starting conditions, ever. You'd literally have to go back in time and reset the whole thing, right? So this idea that science can control the circumstances so that they can repeat things is one of the accepted, you know, like caveats. Science just overlooks it. They just say, we're just not going to count that. For all you know, the only reason that this falls the same way every time has nothing to do with that's gravity. It's just that's a pattern. Maybe one of these times it will float. You know, you don't know. You don't know for sure. There's no way to know for sure until you do it. Science will say, no, you can know for a fact. Yeah, but that's assuming you have perfect knowledge of everything, and there's no way you can have perfect knowledge of the entire infinite universe. You can't. For all you know, somewhere out there, something just changed, and in a million billion years, it'll be different. The very fundamental laws of nature can change at any moment, I guarantee it, because they didn't always exist. They formed when the Big Bang happened, or so we think. Certain fundamental laws of reality only clicked into their current state when the universe cooled and expanded enough for them to actually matter. Before that, they didn't. There was a time before time, and there will be a time after time. There will be a time when, if you believe in time, that is, which I don't. Not as a literal thing, anyway. As an observation, sure, but not as an actual thing, no. So, yeah. Jen says it should be a big number 2. A big number 2 poo. Oh, man. All right, let's see how many people are here. What do we got? 13. Okay, 29. That's better. 29 is a little bit low, guys. Tell your friends. D.H. Thorne's talking about nonsense tonight. But, yeah. Scroll around here, see if I missed any good conversations. So hopefully that sort of answered your question, Hi. You know, are we all equal in our ability to practice? Hey, if you've got the same faculties, then you can practice anything that other people can practice. Practice is the easy part, believe it or not. Yeah, Jen, YouTube's asshole. I mean, I'm one of the reasons I'm not creating content is because I'm just completely, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Disillusioned about using any big tech platforms. They just, you know, growth is hard on them because YouTube, even if they're not censoring me for political content anymore, so let's say that they stop doing that, they're still fucking around with the algorithms based on the fact that they're trying to compete with TikTok. So you've got to do shorts if you want to get subs. But the subs that would subscribe to you because of your shorts aren't necessarily the subs that would subscribe to you for your main content. So they may subscribe to you for your short videos and then never watch your long form videos. Then what? But because YouTube is focusing on putting out impressions based on your shorts performance, not on your long form as much, you're taking a double whammy. So you basically, it's like YouTube wants you to just be making shorts all the time. Shorts and streams, that's all they really want out of you. You know, back in the heyday, I was doing 250, 300, I think it was 250 subs a month. That sounds hot, doesn't it? Atropa, what's 250 subs a month? Like, what's that? That'd be a lot. It's a couple a day. So YouTube is asshole. And I am not in the mood to rebuild everything on Rumble and Odyssey. I've got a BitChute account. I've got an Odyssey backup account, which I barely, you know, it's automated, so I don't even have to go there and do anything with it. I should start using Rumble, but the problem is for non-political content, those other platforms are not so great. If I go on BitChute, I get plenty of views, but BitChute's more of a political platform, and it seems to be overrun more by Christian conservative conspiracy theory people and stuff like that, which is fine, but you don't get as much other content. It's there, you just don't get as much. Same thing with Rumble and Odyssey. It's there, but you don't get as much. YouTube's got a ton of other content, but because they're trying to compete with TikTok, they're ruining their own platform constantly. It's like they're trying to just break it. But I've just sort of lost my interest in trying to build my YouTube anymore. I've literally just gotten to the point where it's just fuck this thing. Like, why should I make YouTube money off of my fucking labor anymore? They're going to show ads whether I want them to or not. I turn them off and people tell me they get ads on things that I don't have ads on. It's just, YouTube is just a garbage platform. And here I am using it almost exclusively, but it's a garbage platform. I wish YouTube would go back to the way it was 10 years ago. That thing was awesome. Use all the same technology it's got now with streaming and everything. Just rewind the clock like 10 years algorithmically and everything else. I wouldn't use TikTok if you paid me, Jen. I know a lot of people use it because you can grow really fast. And let's pretend that a lot of that growth is real and not bots. I wouldn't touch TikTok. Just having it on your phone, you're basically giving China everything. Not that you're not already, but like TikTok is like give China everything, like New Game Plus style, you know? At least Facebook and Twitter and all them, they got to go through channels to get that crap. Yeah, 2011 was a good time to be on YouTube. Before the first adpocalypse, but even after that, it was still pretty decent. Oh, I'm not saying there's not good content on TikTok, Jen. There's a couple, like I like watching Vantalord. I'll check out his stuff. If you haven't watched Vantalord, he cracks me up. Vantalord is this dude, and he does like this shtick about like the council, and you know, he'll like act like he's like ironing stuff, and he's just funny as fuck. I'll watch him, but generally TikTok, like I don't use TikTok as an app. I go through, have all my fucking shields up before I click on a TikTok link. Like all my personal privacy shields are up when I go there. Wyatt says to stay here till January 1st. I don't know why. I'm not going anywhere. It's just YouTube. I've just, you know, I am so disinterested in this platform. I've really lost my interest in it. You know what I want right now? I want more real life person to person interaction. You know, going to Iron Garden once every month or 2 or 3 has really been good. You know, getting out, going to the club, that's been really good for me. You know, meeting people like Jen in New Jersey and everybody else who came. You know, that's what I need. This online shit is just gross to me. It's gotten to the point where it's worse than a job. You know, it's a soulless, I'm fucking talking to a computer screen. I'm talking to this fucking microphone contraption, and I'm looking into a camera. I'm not looking at people. I'm looking at fucking blobs on a screen of text. You're not real. This sucks. This is what I do to cope. Think about this. How many of you guys have a social life outside the internet? And if you have a social life outside the internet, how many people are in it? And how often do you see them? If you see anybody besides a spouse or family more than once a week, and it's not job related, you are lucky. You are very lucky. 'Cause, 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 ' Yeah, Jen, maybe don't come after a treatment. Yeah, I mean, everybody's gonna say like even if they have it, they don't have much, right? Atropa? No, it's like social time that's not business related or something like that. You know, it's not just that I'm older. That doesn't help. Obviously, like I remember my parents didn't have a lot of friend time either, but I know they had more social time than my wife and I do. I know they did. So do you. You've all had more social time. Oh yeah, I'm familiar with libs of TikTok, Wyatt. It's like we're forgetting how to be in person. And more every day, I want to just go to that cabin in the woods. I want to start alone for a little while. And then I want people who are sick of the internet to wander in too. Oh man. I had someone the other day at my other job uh talking about how they're seeing 333 everywhere. And at my regular job, you wouldn't know that I'm into anything. I'm sitting there dressed for hard labor. And I just look at them and I smile. I'm like, if they only knew, like they know what 333 is. Oh, okay. They seem a little new agey, but yeah, if only they knew. Wyatt wants to build my mansion. We'll build that mansion for everybody that's cool. I like the party bus caravan thing too. That sounds cool. I like that. Yeah, Tropa. I'm mixed between I'm either like totally introverted or totally extroverted. I go through phases, it depends. Um, you know, there's days where I'm like, let's go out, let's do something. I need to breathe. And then there's days where it's like, leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to go anywhere. And like it could be like a week or two at a time of either extreme. But um, you know what I missed though? The thing I missed was back when I was in my late teens, early 20s. We had the pool hall that I would go to that I basically lived at when I wasn't home. I'd wake up, I would do whatever. If I didn't have work or school, I'd get up and I'd go to the pool hall. I didn't have any money, I would just sit there, you know. I would just hang out, didn't necessarily even play pool, but I'd talk to people. I'd talk to the owner, I would just sit there, I'd draw, I would shoot pool, I would, you know, do whatever it took. And I would just hang out. And there's really no place to do that anymore. Like, where is it? Where do you do that anymore? Like, even a pool hall, you go to a pool hall and they're like, okay, you can be here while you've paid and then you got to leave. Like, they don't, like, places have just given up on letting you hang out there, right? Not that that was always a lot, but like, you know, you can go to a bar, I guess. That would be the exception. But I don't want to go and drink somewhere necessarily. I'm not there to drink. I want to go and meet people and do things and have a circle around me and all that stuff. Good night, Malachi. I assume you're leaving. You said ciao, so I assume that says goodbye. Good seeing you, Malachi. I know I've often said that I don't want to be in cities, but it's not that so much. There's a part of me that really likes cities. Like there's a part of me, it's the sci vampire part, I guess. There's times I really crave like the idea of living in a city sounds awesome. But I'd want to be able to leave, you know. And there's times where living in the countryside sounds awesome, but then I feel the loneliness of imagine being so I'm already alone in the suburbs. I don't have a lot of friends or family in the suburbs, and it's pretty lonely and boring. There's not as much cool stuff going on in the suburbs. Like the city's got a lot of cool stuff going on. So at least if I was in the city, there'd be things I could do. People I could meet, stores to visit, you know, there's definitely club scenes and occult scenes in most cities that you can take part in. There's not really much of that going on around here though. But the countryside sounds worse because if you're alone in the city, there's still stuff to do. If you're alone in the country, unless you really like hunting, fishing, and building forts, country gets worse, I think, in a way. But I need the solitude of the countryside once in a while, for sure. I'm like in a bad part of the suburbs. I got a train track next to my house and a school on the other side. It's always noisy here. And it's not like city noise. And the thing about city noise, like when I've stayed in the city and I've had friends like went to school in the city, we'd spend weekends with them, whatever. The apartments, even a couple of floors up and the city gets quiet. Like you go up, I'm going to say like by the 4th or 5th floor, you don't hear the city anymore, really. It's just a distant little beep, 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 you know, and the windows and everything, they're very soundproof. You know, you can get quiet in the city, believe it or not. But I know what you're saying. It doesn't feel as quiet. It doesn't feel as quiet like pheromone wise, energy wise, empathy wise. Like you feel it. Like I feel it. But yeah. Nurture says, DH, us kings still have a bar pool hall we chill at and the owner doesn't bother us. Yeah, that sounds like fun. I may have to go looking for some. I'm also in my, my mid 40s. And so like, something happens in your 40s, you don't go out unless it's structured as much as you used to. Like when I was younger, it would be, we're just going to meet up with our friends and just hang out and figure it out. Nowadays, we have to have a goal. We have to have a movie, a bar, a restaurant. And it's stupid. Instead of just going and hanging out somewhere and just being with people and making that the point of it, we need a point to see. Like, that's how it's backwards. Like, as you get, that's what you fuck up as you get older. Like, this is just an observation. I don't think it's just a sign of the times. I think it's always like this, like every generation. Once you reach a certain age, because your time to hang out is limited, you structure it more. And when you can't structure it right, it's not as fun. And when you can structure it, it becomes about the structure, not about the people. It's not so much about, let me just hang out with my friends and just be there. Now it's, we've got to see a movie. We've got to do this thing. There's got to be an objective. And that ruins it, honestly, because it's not really about the people anymore. It's about the activity, and that ruins it. We're just talking about, what are you, Florida? Sounds like a Florida thing. Alligators in your yards, coyotes, bears. It's like Florida, somewhere in the South, that's for sure. I guess Louisiana, maybe. Florida. Someone asked about babies. Who was that? Okay. Hi said, no, was it Hi? No, who was it? Someone said it. Oh yeah, Salora. Salora, I forgot you again because you said it and I forgot you said it. Hey DH, do you think babies exist in non-duality until a certain age? Literally nobody remembers being a baby, so they do not have an ego. Now, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what babies think, do, see, or feel. We don't know anything about that because we're not that anymore. And when we were, we don't remember it, so we don't have a knowledge of it. But there's different ways of looking at non-duality. Pure non-duality is bordering on solipsistic. Pure non-duality says that right now, the only thing that is real is my consciousness. When I say my consciousness, I mean like that universal my. My consciousness is the only thing that's real. And everything that I'm experiencing is a figment of that consciousness, meaning none of you are really real. But neither am I. That's why it's not solipsism, see? Solipsism is this idea that only D.H. Thorne is real and everything else is an automaton that's fake and or something, an illusion, whatever, but D.H. Thorne is real. That's solipsism. Non-duality is like cosmic solipsism. It's solipsistic in the cosmic sense. If you take that version of non-duality all the way, you realize that D.H. Thorne is not real, the world is not real, but the consciousness that is centered in D.H. Thorne right now is it. And all of you guys are equally unreal compared to D.H. Thorne. So it's like any dream, right? In any other dream, if you're being chased by Bigfoot in a dream, does Bigfoot have its own personal subjective experience of consciousness? Most people would say no. That doesn't mean there's no consciousness there, because Bigfoot's made of consciousness. Whatever consciousness is, Bigfoot's made of it in the dream. So from that hardcore non-dual perspective, babies don't exist at all. You don't exist at all. None of this exists. It's all something consciousness is doing. When I say it doesn't exist, it exists as an experience, and that experience is inspired. It's got a root. There's a cause behind it that's real, but it itself is not reality. So babies aren't real. Babies don't exist in a purely true non-dual sense. They appear and they disappear. Do they have their own sense of consciousness? Well, you tell me, do you have your own sense of consciousness? I'm sure you're going to say yes, but how do I know? This is where we get into like these different traps, right? These are different intellectualizing traps. The fundamental realization of non-duality is there is consciousness, and everything that appears in it is a form of consciousness. And consciousness is not a thing. It is an ineffable, that's consciousness. So do babies exist in a non-dual state? Technically, everything's in a non-dual state. It just doesn't know it. Only the one who has awakened knows. And the one who awakens is not the one who awakens. You know what I mean? Now, from a more externalized non-dual perspective, where we take reality at face value enough to say that everything is in non-duality and non-duality is in everything, and we don't make the argument that babies don't exist. We say babies don't exist as babies, but there is something there that's baby-like, and it is distinct from us right now. And so, yes, babies have a mind process, and they have a this and a that, and they theoretically would have a localization of consciousness within them. Because obviously, when we love something living, like I've got my pet bird, I got my wife, got my dog, I got my snakes, got other family and all this other stuff. What I love about them is not their body, because if that person dies, do I love their body the same way I love them when they're alive? This is getting to the root of your question, by the way, Solora. We got to go all the way around all these different things to get the answer we're looking for, because a straight yes or no doesn't do it, right? So think about it for a moment. Everybody listening to me, think of your favorite friend, pet, lover, family member, whatever. Now, you may love their body, like sexually, or you may think they're pretty, whatever. But you don't really love their body. You love the spark in them. That's what you love. I don't love my bird because it's a green little parrotlet made of fleshy stuff. What's up, Jen? I don't love my wife because she's hot. I don't love her body for her body. I don't love my dog because she's a dog. I love the spark of divinity that is apparent within. At the most superficial levels of non-duality, when we're starting to realize it, we recognize in others the love and the light and the divine of the self. I love my wife because in my wife I recognize consciousness, and that consciousness is the divine, and the divine loves itself implicitly, unconditionally. So if my wife died, would I still love her body? No, not the same way I love her when consciousness is apparent in that body. Then I love it more. Obviously, none of us love the body of the thing that we are in love with. That's just a vessel, a vehicle, a holder for it. But even that's not appropriate, because consciousness can't be contained by anything. Consciousness is a presence. It is a presence like a spotlight. Consciousness is like a spotlight shining on something. Consciousness is not a thing that exists in something. I should get a whiteboard, yeah. I don't know why that's a meme. What's that from? There must be somebody who uses a whiteboard for shit, but I can see it being a good idea. I'm not good with drawing diagrams. It would be like the stupidest, like little swirly things. Like, even though I'm a decent artist, like I'm not very good at like ad-libbing pictures and shit like that. Like I wouldn't be good at that. Neon Cicada says, I think it's illegal to love her body like that. Nice. Yeah, you know whose stream you're on. But for real, right? You love the divine. That's what you love. When you look at an animal, person, place, or whatever, you love the divine in that thing. So we don't know what the deal is with a baby. But what I like to do as a thought experiment is walk myself backwards to that state of development. And I ask myself, as that infant, at what point and how does Maya form? Meaning the simulacrum, meaning the world that we see. When does that form in your consciousness? What is it before you've learned what it is what I'm getting at. So let's do a thought experiment. You are a baby in the womb. So place yourself, close your eyes for a minute, and try to imagine yourself as a baby in the womb. What is that like? Now I'm going to list a couple of things, right? And I'm going to debunk them all. And you're going to go, oh shit. So let me go through them one by one. When you're a baby in the womb, what's the first thing you think of? Warmth, darkness, closeness, wetness, right? Are those the things we can describe what it would be like to be in the womb? How many of you guys agree? Show me a hand, say yes, say no. Are those the kinds of things you imagine being in the womb is like? It's warm, it's close, meaning like, you know, there's some compression, it's dark, there's noise, like you hear a pulse throbbing. Okay. Those are all things that when we look back on being in the womb, that's what we imagine it would be like, right? Yes or no? I'll wait a second. I expect pretty much all yeses. So we imagine when we go back in time to that baby in the womb thing, we imagine warmth, we imagine closeness, we imagine the noise of the womb, we imagine wetness, all of that. But here's the thing. Krasinski, shut up. You beat me to it. Thank you. Krasinski got it. A baby wouldn't know it's warm because it's never experienced cold. A baby doesn't know sound because it's never experienced silence. A baby doesn't know light or dark because it's never experienced, it's only had the one. It has not yet had any sort of polarity. to those experiences, without the polarity, without the conflict between cold and hot, what do you feel? If you've never been cold, what is warmth? If you've never been warm, what is cold? If you've always been that perfect temperature, you don't feel temperature, do you? If you've always heard sound, meaning the gushing and the throbbing of the womb, do you hear? Do you see? Do you smell? Do you taste? What is it that you're experiencing? You experience a great no-thingness again. You're in a no-thingness state. Okay, so a baby comes out. Floosh. Wah! Okay, baby pops out. Now, forgetting for a moment that the baby's brain isn't developed enough, at least according to science, to start forming memories and things yet. Let's pretend that that's fully in effect. So you're born, you pop out. And now you have all of this new contrast to the thing you experienced a moment ago. It's colder. You feel the wetness because now you feel the air drying it off of you. You feel the spank on your ass. You feel your voice. You breathe. You see. Everything now has conflict. That's right, Wyatt. You're just an asshole floating in water, literally, because we're all diadomes. So you're born, and now you've got all these contrasting sensations. But you haven't yet learned what they are. When you're a newborn baby, do you differentiate sight from sound? Can you tell the difference in what they are? Do you know that sight is not sound and that sound is not sight? Or is it all part of one big tapestry of experience that is inseparate from anything else? Guess what? A Zen monk knows how to get back to that infantile state of consciousness, because you can, through certain meditations, they're not hard, they're actually the easier in some ways meditations you can do. You enter a thoughtless mind state. You soften the gaze of your eyes so that the three-dimensionality of the world goes away in a fuzzy haze, half-lidded eyes. You meditate deeply, your body goes numb, everything goes kind of quiet, and you enter into a state where you don't differentiate experiences so much. It starts off with, yes, sight, sound, they're all differentiated. But after a while, it's just a wall of experience. It's just a totality all at once. It's not that you smell colors or something. It's not that you confuse the senses. It's that you just experience as a whole thing, a holistic experience all at once. It's the cool part about Zen meditation. Zen style meditation. And I don't think it's just unique to Zen, by the way. I think you find it in like other traditions too. So when the baby's born, that's what they're experiencing. They're experiencing a cacophony of new experiences that conflict with each other, but they don't know what they are yet, do they? They still don't know hot and cold. They just know one moment ago from now. They don't know that that's hot and that that's cold. They might know that something's uncomfortable, but they don't know that it's hot yet. I'm not saying you should ever do this, but if you hold a lit match up to a baby, they don't know that that's burning. They might recognize the discomfort, but they might not even feel it as pain yet. Pain might not even have developed as an isolated realization yet. Pain is just an intense feeling. We assume that babies cry because they're in pain. They're crying because they're distressed. Neon brings up it's a lot of growth. That's true. There's some duty in there. Yeah. Yeah, they do. I mean, the tropa, they definitely do. They poop in there. There's poop and pee, but it's baby poop and pee. It all comes out as like this nasty goop. It's not good shit. I mean, I've never been present for a birth, and I intend to never be. I don't think my wife and I are having kids anymore, so I think I dodged the bullet of having to be there present for a birth. So I'm planning on keeping it that way. I know some people are like, oh, it's a beautiful thing. It's, I mean, it's, I mean, I guess, I mean, you know, not really, but okay. Um, so the baby's born. It has this tapestry of experiences, this wall of quite literally a non-dual experience of reality, because it's not nothing separate yet. When it looks around, when a newborn baby looks around, they don't even have the brain development to really recognize things yet. It's all just a cacophony of light and sound. They don't know what they're experiencing yet. So imagine you're born and imagine your mother and father. Can you do that? I want everybody here, imagine you were just born, and I want you to imagine, as best you can, your mother and father there. Can you do that? Do you think that's what your babyhood self saw? I want you to be really careful how you think about this. When you were born, you don't know what a mother and father is. So let's pretend that your eyes were perfectly developed, that you could see as well as you do now when you were born. And you come out, skabloosh, you fall out, you hit the mat, you're crying, you look around, you see doctors and people. Do you see doctors? Do you see nurses? Do you see your mother? Do you see your own umbilical cord? Do you see any of those things? If you say yes, you haven't quite got it yet. Because when you were a baby, there was no conceptualization of any of those things. There was no identification of any of those things. Without an identification of those things, it was all just a wall of stuff. There were no doctors there. There was just part of the image was moving that looked that way and another part looked at, there was no differentiation of any sort of meaningful capacity. I want you to think of being born as a city slicker walking into the city for the first time, walking into the countryside for the first time, and being confronted by a tiger that's blended in with the environment so well that they don't see it, even though it's standing right out in the open. When you're newborn, the world is camouflaged because you don't know how to associate anything yet. You don't recognize mom or dad or the doctor or your umbilical cord because you've not yet learned to differentiate them. It's all just wiggling parts of the same image. You don't know what they are yet. So you don't even know where they begin or end. I promise you, enter into the deep enough but eye-open transcendental states, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can sit there and not be able to tell the difference between a soda can and the backdrop that it's in. It's all just a flat two-dimensional scene. And you only recognize it as a soda can when your brain clicks into a thoughtful side of experience. If you're experiencing reality in a thoughtless way, there's no soda cans. None of these things exist as what you think they do. Your experience of reality is a fucking Rorschach ink blot that you take for granted as real. It's basically the same idea. Except the Rorschach ink blot you're looking at is your brain. You think you're looking at the world. You think you're looking outside. You think that a baby exists outside of you. So if I go into a nursery ward and I see a bunch of babies, I look at those babies and say, oh yeah, look at that baby over there. That baby over there is a baby in here, and that in here, this is all in here. It's all in here. It's not out there. There's no baby over there. There's a baby over there. It's in me. It's in consciousness. It's in whatever I am. That's where the baby is. How could that baby be self-aware? Get it? It's not there. So, okay, you're born and you fall out, and you see this wall of experience and you haven't yet learned to differentiate it. You don't even know that you're different from it. You wouldn't know that you're different from it because you haven't yet had a sense of I'm here and that's there, because it's all just an experience. Your body's part of that same holistic experience. Clap your hands. Is that happening outside of you or inside of you? Where is that happening? Go do it right now. Clap your hands. Is that happening outside of you or is that happening inside of you? Think about it. You've only learned as an adult over a lifetime to differentiate these things and classify them, to reify them as separate things. This is a learned ignorance. It is a learned delusion. It's a willful delusion at that. It's not an accident. It wasn't forced on you. You chose it. You chose to be deluded this way. Just by incarnating this way, you've chosen to be ignorant in this way. If you want to see reality for what it is, it's a little disappointing if you're really coming from the perspective of it's going to be like a psychedelic trip. A psychedelic trip is what happens when your brain decouples from the programming of consciousness as you experience it right now. It's like you can see other realities because you're no longer locked into only seeing things this one way. It's like you're tuning into something. It's like you've changed perspective. Yeah, hi, that's true. I mean, I'm not even taking into account the limitations of a newborn. I'm just assuming the newborn can do what you can do. So let's go back further and say newborns don't even have the brain power to do what we do. Well, hold on a minute. Did we not just commit a cardinal sin, which is to take the brain real? To take the brain as something real and literal when isn't it just another differentiated experience in consciousness? Isn't it just another little symbol, the brain? Isn't that a symbol of a brain? What's a brain? You don't know. You've never experienced a brain. You never will. You could chop somebody's head open. You've never experienced a brain. That's not a brain. That's what a brain looks like. You don't know what a brain is. What's a brain? It's an enigma. It's an enigma that forms the ground of your being, apparently. If we were to take the external world as real at all, then consciousness is looking at the brain. It's not even looking at the world. It's looking at the brain. It's looking at what the brain's doing. So if we want to have like a panpsychist perspective, in panpsychism, you'd say there's a body with a brain and consciousness is observing the brain or the activity of the brain, the electrical signals, whatever. Maybe that's what your pineal gland is for. Maybe that's an eye, and it's a transmitter receiver type of device that works on the frequencies of light using bioluminescent, there's a word for it. There's a bioluminal consciousness, something like that. It's a theory that exists. It's not made up. It's not even pseudoscience. It's a theory that realizes that the body gives off light and that there may be communication going on between cells, especially neurons, that involve light, not just the electrochemical part. Is it possible that consciousness is light and that light is consciousness? Is it possible that everything is light and everything is consciousness? Is that possible? Yes, of course it is. Because if we really start taking reality apart, we always come back to certain fundamental fields, the electromagnetic field in particular. But anyway, we won't go into that. That's a little too scientific for us today. Focusing on the child thing. So a child's born, they have very limited senses. They have very limited this. And over time, the mind, what is that? What is the mind? What do you think your mind is? Everybody listening to me right now, what do you think your mind is? Does anybody know what your mind really is? I'll bet you if I ask you guys to tell me what your mind is, you're going to say, well, it's my thoughts, it's my feelings, it's my ideas. Nope, that's not your mind at all. Those are things that appear in consciousness, but that's not what the mind is. The mind is not thoughts. It is not feelings. The mind is represented by the atomy for a reason. The mind is represented by the air for a reason. The mind is represented by the athame and the air because the mind is like a blade that cuts. It separates, it outlines, it distinguishes, it distorts. It takes things apart. That's what the mind does. And the mind takes them apart and stitches them together. The mind is a highlighter. It's the outline of the highlight. The mind is not a process of the brain. The mind looks at the processes of the brain and differentiates them and focuses upon them and encapsulates them and surrounds them. The mind is like the air. It's like the air and a blade. It surrounds and cuts. It digitizes. It conceptualizes. It highlights and distinguishes. That's what the mind does. So the mind is not a process of the brain. The intellect is a process of the brain. The intellect being the running monologue, the feelings, and the way that they sort of calculate. The logos is in the brain. If there is a logos at all, it's not in the world, it's in the brain, whatever that is. And the brain's an enigma that's part of the divine itself. It's an enigma. It's a facet of the jewel through which you view the world, and the world is the jewel. So the brain is not the mind. The mind is something that takes the activity of the brain, whatever that is, and isolates, highlights, and differentiates and distorts those things in consciousness so that they become a reality. And people are bringing up memories. Memories are an important feature of this. What is a memory? What is a memory? How many of you guys know what a memory is? Anybody want to tell me what a memory is? Most people don't know what a memory really is. I'm going to give you a couple of definitions of a memory in a minute, but I want to see what you guys think of a memory. What is a memory exactly? See if anybody has an idea. What exactly is a memory? Atropa says an imprint. Wyatt says it's more like a directory than a photo. Information, says Vril. You want to know what's really fucked up? All a memory is a kind of thought. That's all it is. It's a very special kind of thought. It's a thought that we say happened. A memory is just a thought like any other. Think of a red fire truck. Now think of a red fire truck that you saw once. What's the difference? You might have even seen the same red fire truck for both. Memories and thoughts are fundamentally the same thing. A memory is just a special kind of thought. So what makes a memory a memory? Well, we tell ourselves it's something that happened. How do you know it happened? All that exists right now is now. The memory is real as a current experience, but did it really happen? Guess what? That's a philosophical question that still nobody can really answer. We have to assume it happened because we have a memory of it, and moment by moment, we have this sort of fuzzy sphere of reality that's the now moment, where several moments bleed together as one moment of now. We wouldn't be able to see movement otherwise. There must be a little bit of a blur in time for us to see time at all. So we have to assume that memory points to something, but that's the point. Memory is not a recording. Memory is not a recording at all. Your brain doesn't store, and if I'm wrong, let science prove it. Your brain does not store the events. It's not a recording, like Wyatt says. It's more like a directory than a photo, but to even say it's a directory is problematic. Nobody knows how the brain stores memory. We can say that the brain stores memory somewhere in the outer surface. We know that we lose memory when we get hit on the head hard enough because that outer portion of our brain seems connected to memory. But memory, if you remember, so let's do that experiment again with the red fire truck. Go to a time in your life when you saw a red fire truck, for real. Remember that. Remember that moment. Are you actually seeing the red fire truck again, or are you imagining it based on the fact that you should remember it, based on a few details that you've recorded, that you've directed? According to mainstream science, what we call a memory is an imaginative playback based on certain mnemonic devices, cues, words, feelings, phrases that causes a set of neural stimulations to reactivate. So you're looking, when you're thinking about a red fire truck, even when I tell you to imagine one, you're probably piecing that out from an actual experience of a fire truck and recreating it as an imaginary fire truck. And when you remember the fire truck, it's the same thing. It just might be more specific, meaning there's a background to it usually. If I told you to go back in time in a memory, go back to something, go back to this morning. You woke up and you looked in the mirror to get ready for breakfast or whatever, to get ready for your day, right? Most people look in the mirror at least once before they leave the house or do anything. It's one of the first things we all do. We wake up, we go to the bathroom. Even if we don't mean to, we usually see ourselves in the mirror. Okay? So I want you to picture yourself looking at yourself in the mirror this morning as accurately as you can remember. Now do so without the world around it. Can you remember yourself without the world around you? Can you remember that fire truck without the situation it was in? It's very difficult, if not impossible. It's doable, but it's very difficult. So your memories are referential. They are a catalog. They're a directory. They are not actually memories. They're not actual things that are recorded. The idea that memories are a recording of events is wrong. At the very best, at the most you could say about memories from even the materialistic view is that they're like a stenographer's notes. That's what your memories are. And when you recall those notes, then you have an imagination that fills in the blanks and creates the scene. And for all you know, it's completely wrong. In fact, science will show that every one of us are filled with memories that never happened the way we remember them, or even memories that are completely fake. You remember things that never happened. You live long enough, there's things that you remember that never happened. Just like there's things that you can't remember that did happen. Yes, Vril, that's a good way of putting it. Memories are an imaginative construct of how we think something was. Yeah. But do you actually see your memories? No, you don't see your memories. None of us see our memories. None of you have ever seen a memory. You've seen your imagination playing with memory. That's what you've seen. Whatever memory is, you've never seen it. You only see what your imagination does with it. Again, if we're going from a panpsychist perspective, the brain, whatever it's doing, it may be storing things, it may be recording things, but that's not what you're seeing. You're not seeing the brain's memory. You're seeing what consciousness sees. In other words, consciousness sees the activity of the brain. Whatever that's doing appears in consciousness as your experience. And again, that's committing the cardinal sin of taking the brain as literally real. Joffrey, I've done past life regression hypnosis, and there was a time I believed in it more strongly, and there's times where I think it's total bunk, and I think it's both. I think that this idea that you can do hypnosis and remember past lives, I'm not saying no one's ever successfully remembered something that they have no right remembering, but this idea that it's a, and I like the way you put it in quotes, it's a pretty good idea to put it in quotes. You don't have past lives. Malice, I disagree. We were not born conscious. Consciousness was born. No, consciousness experienced birth. That's a better way to put it. Consciousness was not born, and you were not born conscious. Consciousness experienced birth. Consciousness always comes first, last, and always. And consciousness is just a stand-in word for God or Brahman or the absolute or the monad or whatever tradition you want, the Ein Sof or the Ein or whatever the fuck you think it is. That's what it is. Consciousness has nothing to do with your body, your brain, except in the sense that, like two hands that are needed to clap, consciousness needs something to observe. Well, Joffrey, that's fine to think that, but here's the thing, there is no other. There's no other past life. Again, a fully transcendent non-dual realization, you realize there's no others. Okay, we speak of others, it's a colloquialism. We talk about others. We say, oh, you're another person. But that is not how it is from the transcendent perspective. When there is that transcendent experience, then that transcendent experience says there's no other either, because the self isn't real either. Malice says, thanks for underestimating. I wasn't aware of any insult, but if you're insulted, I suppose I should apologize, but I don't know why. But yes, there is no other, because there's not even a self. If there is only self, then there is no self. Just like if there's only one, there is no one. See what I mean? So that whole idea that others have consciousness is a misunderstanding of the concept. Again, from that non-dual perspective, which not everybody has. Not everybody has, obviously, that non-dual perspective. Some people do, some people don't. We call them others, but they're not really others. It's sort of like, how many fingers do you have, right? Well, here's the thing. We categorize these as fingers, as individual fingers. But what makes a finger a finger? You only have one index finger on your right hand. You don't have two index fingers, because one's a left-hand index finger, one's a right-hand index finger. They're not the same thing, are they? But they are the same thing because they're part of you, aren't they? See how you get the madness? There's no others here. It's all the same body. It's a body that's fingering. Okay, that sounds hot. I didn't mean it hot, but it sounds hot. There's a body that's fingering. You don't have fingers, but there's fingers in your conscious awareness, but there's no other to them. It goes back to that analogy of the oceans and the waves. Okay. Non-duality is the realization you're the ocean and not the waves, and that waves aren't things, they're an activity of the ocean. And you can have many waves, but they're all the same ocean. So instead of saying, and obviously you can say others, like sometimes, Joffrey, we get into like the weeds because we sort of pick words apart, right? So like when you say others, you might say from your own mind, you mean other waves of the ocean. You recognize that others aren't really others, and that's fine. So I'm not trying to correct you per se, in case that was the impression I'm giving. I just want to be complete. Those waves are not others. They're all the same ocean wave. You know, waves are an activity of the ocean. They're not things. There is no such thing as a wave. Science says there is because they can catalog them and so on. But a wave is not really a thing. It's a behavior of something. Even in the most strict sense of waves. Waves are not things. They're activities of things. The ocean does not have waves. The ocean waves, right? That's the better way to say it. Maybe not grammatically, but technically that's the better way to think of it. The ocean is waving. So consciousness is peopling. Consciousness is realitying. Consciousness is soda canning. Consciousness is othering. But it's all the same thing. Go back to the dream analogy that I had earlier. You're being chased by Bigfoot in the woods. Who's chasing who? So imagine tonight you fall asleep and you dream that Bigfoot's chasing you. Who's chasing who? Who's chasing you when you dream that Bigfoot's chasing you? Are you even being chased at all? No, you're not. Because that dream avatar is not you. That's just a dream avatar that you're looking through. You are the one that's dreaming. That's who you are. You're not the one that's being chased, and you're not the one chasing, but you are also both of the chased and the chaser, because you're dreaming both. You're neither and you're both, because you're the dreamer of the dream. You're not the dream that is dreamt. This is one of the great problems that newcomers hit when they first start thinking about non-dualism, pantheism, and all these kinds of things. When someone first enters into this, I've had a conversation with somebody who was like a real hardcore, satanic, anti-cosmic, motherfucker, and they hate God and they hate all this shit. And I said, don't you realize that you are God dreaming that you're not? And they had this big problem with it, because they said, so you're saying I'm just a dream? So you're saying I don't exist? You're no better than a Christian who thinks that, only God is real and that people are... I'm just changing who I think God is. I know that God is not this, but it is this. Just like this is my hand, but I am not my hand. Or I should say, my hand is not me, but it is. See where the paradox hits? You're the dreamer of the dream. And that dream is referential. So, again, depending upon your interpretation of your non-dual experience, if you get to the nitty-gritty hardcore... So one interpretation of non-dualism is this: the only thing that you know that's real is awareness. Everything else is something that awareness is experiencing. That is to say, it's a figment of awareness. It could be, it is awareness itself. In other words, it's consciousness. That is to say, this can is consciousness, because consciousness is what this is made of. Not made of in an external sense, in an internal sense. This can doesn't exist in consciousness. It is consciousness itself. And consciousness is localized here. Just like if you're sleeping tonight and you dream about a soda can, is the can made of soda can or is it made of mind stuff, of consciousness? Well, obviously it's made of mind stuff and consciousness. There is no can in your dream. You're dreaming right now, dummy. Even if we take science at face value, even if we say materialistic science is completely right, and the non-duality, spirituality, all that is bullshit, it is still provably true that what you're experiencing is not the real world. It's a dream of the real world that's happening in your brain, and your brain is hallucinating that reality in response to something happening outside of it. But if we say that, then we must admit that our idea of a brain and an outside is part of the dream. We don't know what that is at all, and we never will. All we know for sure from a really hardcore, pure, intellectual, but also experiential, non-dual realization is the only thing we know for sure is what's there when everything goes away, consciousness. That's the only thing that's left. If you do the right drugs, you do the right meditations, you strip away reality, and all that's left is a great presence of consciousness in itself. There's just consciousness. The body, the world, all of it just, and there's the void, and the void, the nothingness, it's not real nothing, it's oblivion, it's every nothing. It's a paradoxical no thing, and that's what you are. It's just consciousness. We call it consciousness because we don't know what else to call it. It's not really consciousness. Like, that's one of the other flaws I see, especially in New Age conversations, that the divine is consciousness, okay? Like, consciousness is a substance. Consciousness is not a substance either. If you can name it, that's not what God is. You can't say God is consciousness. You can say God is conscious as faculty is maybe the wrong word, as part of its nature. So consciousness is the nature of the divine, but the divine is not consciousness. What is blueness? What is blueness is a nature, it's not a thing. What's hot? It's a nature, it's not a thing. Consciousness is like that. Because consciousness, as you understand it, is a perception of consciousness. It's awareness, aware of itself becomes self-awareness, which is self-consciousness. So it's awareness, but what's awareness? Before you're aware of it. See, this is where you get to that whole causeless cause thing. This is why awareness is often, so awareness is the divine feminine and consciousness is the divine masculine. Shiva is consciousness, Shakti is awareness. Okay? And Brahman is both, the yin-yang duality, but it's not really dual, it's a superficial duality. It's really the same thing. Because consciousness is an activity of awareness. It's awareness aware of something. That's what consciousness is. Self-awareness or self-consciousness, self-realization, is awareness aware of awareness. And awareness aware that it is aware of something is sentience. So, when you practice the right things and you strip away all the delusions of duality, and all that remains is awareness or consciousness, at that point you've gone as far down the rabbit hole as you can go and have memory of it. But you can go further and have no memory of it. That's what you call unconsciousness. When you go to sleep tonight, and you have a period of unconscious. Well, here's the real rub, though. There's two schools of thought in this. When you're in that unconscious state, are you still conscious and just don't remember it? Or are you unconscious? Or are you only conscious when you're conscious? Or so Rupert Spira has said, have you ever had a moment in your life when you were unconscious? That's right, CJ. We're talking about the same old thing. Have you ever had a moment in your life when you weren't conscious? Be honest. Can you remember a moment in your life when you were not conscious? No. You can remember the story someone told you about what you were doing when you were unconscious, you were sleeping or whatever, but you were not conscious for it. So you have no memory of that unconsciousness, do you? So one school of thought says that you are always conscious and that you're never not conscious. And sometimes you don't remember being conscious, or consciousness skips memories or something like that. But I think this is overthinking it. I think one of the big mistakes that people make in all of this is basically what I do for a living. They overthink it. They overthink it, and because they have not yet had the awakening experience, even if they have had that experience, I should say, either way, there is a tendency to rationalize it. But if you enter into that state, there's no need for rationalization. It's just there. You're just aware. Time loses meaning. Space loses meaning. It is neither small nor big. I have only achieved the deepest states of that gnosis or samadhi the last time was like a month ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And before that, I'm going to say like 4 times in my life have I had that like sensory deprivation chamber. I am pure consciousness in the abyss. Like there's nothing to be conscious of except consciousness itself. Only a few times have I gone there. And you don't learn much from that, except that all of this isn't real. Because when you go to that state of consciousness, and language fails because you don't go anywhere, there is this disillusion of form, substance, all of that. It's almost like you got unplugged from your robot that you're controlling. And now you're everything again. And you're so much of everything that you're nothing again. Like it's all gone because it's all there. So there's no more differentiation. You can't tell. It's like for the last time I did it, I had the distinct feeling like I was just melting into reality, and then reality just became darkness, and then the darkness went away, and there was it's not a sense of darkness or light. It is blindness, aware of its blindness. It's blindness, deafness, tasteless, feelinglessness, but you're conscious of it. It's not even like you're shut in. It's not like you're cooped up in something. It's an indescribable feeling. It really is. And what I'm saying is butchering it. There's like no way. There's no way to say it. It felt like when a drop of water enters a pool, and there's like if you ever drop water into like a pool of water, and it like, you know, it makes that water drop thing, like it shoots up and then it goes back in. That's kind of what it felt like, a water drop going back in and just losing itself in the entirety. And it's just conscious. It's just conscious of the entire, you can't distinguish anything. It's just, I exist, and that's it. When I was in that state particularly, I had no memory of who I was. I tried first, because interestingly enough, I was able to summon up not a voice, but a kind of a voiceless query. Like the meaning of the words, who am I, without the words, who am I? And I can say I know that because I through certain meditative practices, some of you guys can probably do this too. I can go through most of my life with very little mental chatter. I don't need to think things through the way other people do. That's not to say that there's no thoughts going on. It's just that they're not vocal thoughts and they're not visual thoughts. They are pure thoughts. They are pure just conclusions. They're just downloads, uploads, just, I just know it now. They're wordless realizations. So it's all the meanings of the words, who am I, without the words, who am I, or the pictures, or any other reference. There's no referential thing. It's just the meaning of who am I was passed through that moment. And there was no ability. I had no idea who I was. The thought itself had no meaning. The question had no meaning. It was a silly question. Who am I? There's no who. It was just, and that's the best I can say is just, I can't say what it was. There have been other times where I've had that sort of ego disillusion, as CJ put it, but there was still experiential things going on. So you can have ego dissolution with or without having a total void experience. You can, you can be like tripping balls in other universes and not know who you are. So you could be seeing all kinds of crazy shit and not know who you are. You're just a disembodied awareness. Well, what do you think it's like to probably be dead? If death is a thing at all. And what do I remember from those things? Very little. A couple of times that I went through it, not much was imprinted into memory except the vaguest recollection of it happening. Because a memory requires a subject and object. A memory requires something to tackle, something to hold on to, something to reference. If there's nothing to reference, you don't remember it. And a big part of referentiality is a point of subject to relate to the object. If there's no subject to relate to the object, how do you form a memory? So I remember experiencing, but I don't remember what those experiences were. Just like when you go to sleep at night and you know that you were sleeping, but you don't know what happened. It's a lot like that. So let me help you understand the difference between awareness and consciousness for a moment. I'll give it to you as an analogy. Awareness is forever. Awareness is the ultimate nature of the divine, the non-dual, the Brahman, whatever you want to call it. That's not to say it is awareness, because that is declaring it as something. That's not correct. You can't say what it is. But awareness is part of its nature, and it's probably the most intrinsic part of its nature. Awareness is fundamental to its being. So what is awareness? Well, awareness is not consciousness in itself. Now, I can tell you that you are always aware, but you're not always consciously aware. How do I know that? Because if you go to sleep tonight and you're in the depths of the deepest dreamless sleep you can possibly imagine, you are dead to the world, your body doesn't have any sign of consciousness in it whatsoever. If I take a bucket of ice water and throw it on you, you're going to wake up. How could that be if you weren't aware? Awareness doesn't return because you got hit with water. Awareness had to be aware of the water for you to wake up at all. So that's what awareness is. Awareness is not consciousness. Awareness is awareness. It is something that is ineffable. It's not describable. It is awareness. There's no other word for it. There's no analogy for awareness. There's no other finger that can put, it's just awareness. That's it. So you can be aware without being conscious. You're always aware. You're not always conscious, at least according to this view. Consciousness is when you are aware of the awareness. You're aware of being aware of something. That's consciousness. So you're dead ass asleep. You're not consciously aware of anything, but you are aware. If I splash you with water, you're suddenly conscious of the water. And in that moment, Awareness, aware of itself, aware of being aware of something, consciousness, that's what it is. It's a churning of awareness. And it's churning up so much that it's self-reflexive and recursive. That's what consciousness is. Consciousness is recursive awareness. Would I say knowledge is a subset of belief? Belief is inferior to knowledge in every way. Belief is, belief and faith. Like, I don't like, if I say I believe in something, I'm admitting an inferior knowledge. Okay. So if I say I believe that this is what it means, for example, just as a hypothetical, like anything. If I say I believe in something, I'm not saying that I know it. I'm saying that intellectually it makes sense to me. That doesn't mean I know it for a fact. I don't believe in non-duality. I don't believe in the divine. I don't believe in those things. When someone says, do you believe in God? I say no. No, I don't. And then someone will say, but you just said you're God. I don't believe in God. I know God, and I know it's not this, but when I point to myself, I'm pointing to consciousness. I'm pointing to it all. I know that's real. I know it's there. I know it exists. I'm experiencing it right now, and so are you. You just don't think of it that way. I don't believe I'm God. I don't believe you're God. I know. And knowledge, gnosis, true knowledge, is not a belief. True knowledge is experiential in the moment. It's a presence. It's a process. It is active knowledge. That's true knowledge. Can you believe something that's true? Of course. Can you believe something that you don't have knowledge of? Of course. Can you come to know something that was once a belief? Yes. That's how a lot of people progress. But here's the thing. You don't believe your way to enlightenment. You don't believe your way to realization of your divinity. That happens spontaneously. And when it does, you don't go back. It's like getting struck by lightning. And you could say that, see, the cool, one of the reasons why I like to compare this enlightenment stuff with being struck by lightning is because it is spontaneous like that. And it can happen out of the blue. There's people who've been struck by lightning on a clear blue day. It does happen. It's just really rare. If you want to get struck by lightning, you got to hang out in a thunderstorm. So someone trying to achieve enlightenment, it can happen spontaneously without any activity at all whatsoever. But if you want to get struck by lightning, if you want to get enlightenment to happen, it helps to be in an enlightenment environment, which means a little bit of belief. You've got to believe it's possible. You got to believe that non-duality could be the truth. There has to be some belief, at least a seed. You don't have to know the whole thing. It's got to at least be a possibility that you can believe in. That's all. Some people have non-dual realizations without any prompting, without any foreknowledge or any experience. They're just sitting there one day, sipping a pina colada, watching the sunset and realizing, wait a minute, is that real or am I just experiencing something in conscious? Like, it'll click spontaneously. Well, belief is a kind of faith. Faith and belief are very similar words. They're not the same, but they have, if we're doing semantics, they are different. But faith is belief with less proof. Belief requires at least some proof. Faith requires very little proof. In fact, traditionally speaking, you are considered more faithful and thus more holy if you believe with less proof and evidence. If you believe God is divine and great and you're living a life of hell in a jail cell as a criminal, I'm not as a criminal, as a martyr, and you're doing it all based on faith with zero evidence because God obviously must not be real if he's letting you suffer this way, that's considered a much nobler form of faith than someone who's had proof. So for example, Moses seeing the burning bush, had less faith than his disciples. And in that sense, they were more holy because they didn't need it proven, right? That's the irony of faith. That's why faith is like an ugly word. I hate faith. I think faith and belief. Belief and faith are anathema to knowing. There is a substantive, not just semantical, a substantive difference between knowledge, belief, and faith. They're not the same thing. You can believe in something you have knowledge of. You can have faith in something you have knowledge of. But knowledge is the pinnacle. Knowledge is something that transcends both belief and faith. And in order of value, knowledge is the only one. Belief is, providing it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to think of how to say this. Providing that your belief is tempered by reasonable doubt and skepticism, belief is fine. You know, I believe that this will fall. Do I know it will fall? Only when I see it falling. So right now, I believe it will fall. I know it fell. That's the difference. So I believe in non-duality. I had a non-dual realization. I have faith that I will have a non-dual realization if I drop this. I had a non-dual, the faith clicked. That time it was right. Yes, CJ, there is only one thing you can know for certain 100%, and that is consciousness. That is the only thing. It goes back to Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am, except when he said think, I'm pretty sure he meant I have conscious awareness, not necessarily thoughts. People say, I think a colloquialism at the time was to conflate thought with consciousness. So he was saying, I am conscious, therefore I am. And that is what non-duality says. That is what pantheism is, what everything says. That is the only thing that can be proven without any doubt. That is the one thing you can know because you know it right now. Right now, you are experiencing the only thing you can know, and that is awareness, consciousness. Everything you're experiencing, you cannot know for 100% certain that it is anything other than something consciousness is experiencing or doing. You don't know if it's relevant to something outside yourself. You don't know if it's relevant to something inside yourself. All you know for certain is consciousness. Everything else is something consciousness is doing. So therefore, the only thing you can know for certain is consciousness, which is why I say what I talk about, the heart of what I'm talking about is not a belief. It is a knowledge. It is something that is indisputable. Everything else after that is either an interpretation or some sort of a consequence of that knowledge. So if I say that all is one, well, that's a miswording of something. What I'm really saying is all is an ineffable consciousness. This is where the language breaks down. There's no word for the absolute. There's no word. We call it the absolute. We call it Brahman. We call it consciousness. We don't know what that is because there's no knowing of what that is. Just like a knife can't cut itself and an eye can't see itself and a finger can't point at itself. Consciousness can't describe itself. It can only be aware that it is. Your pointer finger is aware that it's there, but it can't point at itself. Your eye is aware that it has sight, but it can't see itself. Your tooth is aware that it bites, but it can't bite itself, etc., 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 etc. All right, Neon, I guess you found the only other thing that we can know with certainty. I know there's Croc stores. I've seen them at the mall. They suck. So what if someone reserves belief until they see evidence? Again, that is only belief because there's always one operational assumption after conscious awareness. There is the assumption that what you're experiencing is real on some level and not just a manifestation of consciousness itself. The real hardcore non-dual position is a form of cosmic solipsism. It's not solipsism in the irrational sense. It's actually rational solipsism. And I don't like calling it it's solipsistic. To an outsider, it sounds like solipsism. It is not technically solipsism because it recognizes that the self and the other don't exist either. There is just consciousness. There is just that which is conscious, and that which is conscious has no definition, no description, nothing. It's just got a nature, and its nature is consciousness. Its nature is existence, but existence can't be a nature in a sense that just like consciousness can't be a nature because there's no opposite to it. So there is nothing that exists, right? There's only, if I say something exists, that means there has to be the possibility for it not existing. But there is no possibility that consciousness doesn't exist. It's happening right now. You're experiencing it right now. That's what consciousness is. You've always been conscious. Have you ever had an experience that wasn't consciousness or awareness, etc.? No. Orbiting red moon. Do you have any knowledge of the body uncontrollably shaking during meditation and trance? No, never happened to me that way. Luckily, mine have always been, I guess, I've always been a daydreamer when I was younger. And if you're a good daydreamer, trances are kind of like second nature. Like you just flow through them or whatever. It doesn't mean they're always productive. Not every trance is productive. Some trances are just deep daydreams and you're just relaxed and you're just visualizing shit. Some trances, you lose connection with everything you think of as real. So. Consciousness is the filter through which we experience things. Everything goes through consciousness. No, that's still dualistically put. Consciousness is all that you are. It's not a filter. It is. It is the very thing. The filter is the mind. If we conflate the mind with consciousness, then yes, but the mind is that filter you're talking about. It's the mind that filters. Consciousness doesn't filter. Consciousness is like a spotlight. It highlights, it doesn't filter. Awareness doesn't highlight or filter. So awareness is just the big floodlight. Consciousness is a spotlight, and the mind is what filters what's in that spotlight selectively. So as you work your way upstream, go deeper and deeper into what you are, you lose some identification of those things until all that remains, the furthest awareness, consciously got nothing to say. But consciousness, I got something I can say. Pure awareness without consciousness, couldn't describe it if you asked me to. Consciousness, I can barely describe because it's not a description. It's just, I would say I experienced, and it's that when I say I experienced, that's where I have to leave it. That's consciousness. Consciousness is not the thing you experienced. Consciousness is the I experienced. It's the experiencing. That's consciousness. It's not. Yeah. Words suck. Bennis. I have a big Venus. Thank you, CJ. Thank you for the $9.99 for the Bennis, for the Venus. We should all have a big penis. You just wanted me to say penis for $10. Thank you, brother. I feel like such a babe in the woods because I just recently heard of the word vril. I don't even know what that is exactly. I know, like, wasn't there, like, somebody put a meme on the Discord about Vril as life energy with a racist twist because it has to do with the birthing of the race or something. I don't know. I have to look at it. I have to look it up. I've never, what is it? The Vril Society or something? I'll have to look it up. I'm like a babe in the woods. Sometimes I do myself a disservice by talking about myself like I'm an occultist. When I say I'm an occultist, what I meant by that, or if I say I'm an esotericist, what I mean by that is, what is the root meaning of the word occultism? It's looking for the hidden. It's seeing the hidden. It's working with the hidden. It's studying the hidden. That's what esotericism is. So what I'm looking for, what I'm looking through is I'm looking through the veil. That's when I say I'm an occultist, that doesn't mean I'm knowledgeable about all occult traditions or something. When I say I'm an occultist, that means that I am looking at the unseen. I am a plumber of the depths of the unseen. That is my bread and butter. It's not that I know bibbity bobbity boo per se, although I do know quite a bit about it. That's not what makes me an occultist. Okay. Some people, when they say I'm an occultist, they mean they've memorized, you know, fucking the Necronomicon or something. Like that's what they mean. Yeah. Yeah, Vril, I don't even know what it is. I'm just pointing out, like, I didn't even know that that word meant something until recently. Dude, everything's racist now, Wyatt. It's, you know, I think that, especially for you, brother, when you get maybe a little bit more sovereignty over your life, you're going to find that a lot of these things, for whatever reason, you are sort of being waterboarded by them. And when I say that, I mean, it's not everywhere. It's kind of just where you are. Yes, woke, cancel culture, everything's racist. Those people are a dime a dozen, and there's a lot of them. And it's a real problem. But it's not everybody. It's probably not even a majority. It is a sizable minority. And I think that they're actually a smaller number of those people than people who don't like that. It's not that conservatives outnumber them or anything like that. It's that normal people outnumber that craziness. Normal people think it's stupid and they fear it, but they only fear it not because they think they're right, but because it's a mob. Everyone's scared of a mob. And when you have a mob of stupid people, it's basically zombies. And I consider woke cancel culture people zombies that are stupid. They're rabid dogs, quite literally in some cases. And, you know, it's not that I disagree with every single thing woke people say. That's actually the sad irony, is that there's a lot of cases where I agree with them. I just don't agree with them to the extent that they would want. You know, so to them, I'm a racist because I don't believe in reparations or something like that. No, I don't see the world the way they do. Doesn't make me a racist at all. Doesn't make me a bigot. Doesn't mean that I'm phobic. Doesn't mean any of those things. Do I have ignorances? Of course. That's what we used to call it. Back in the 90s, we gave people the benefit of the doubt. Instead of thinking that everybody was evil, we just thought that most people were ignorant and didn't realize that they were being hurtful or inconsiderate or whatever. So when you encountered someone who maybe used what the woke assholes would call a microaggression, you didn't sit there and pick it apart and say it's a microaggression, that means you're subtly racist and blah, blah, blah. We recognize that you just probably didn't know you were offending someone, and if you knew, you would stop. Because in my experience, 9 times out of 10, people don't want to offend other people, and they don't judge them for stuff like that. You know, when someone wants me to use their pronouns, I don't get it up in a big hissy fit over it. You know, that doesn't faze me. I don't give a shit about that. It's like saying, call me Dan or DH or something. It doesn't fucking matter to me if you want to be. Now, if it may bother somebody else, okay, that's your prerogative. I'm not even judging those people. I'm not judging either group. I literally think it's a silly thing for people to think other people should change over. In either direction. If someone is really like, I have these pronouns and it really makes me happy if you call me that, or it makes me, I think it's a silly thing to build your life out of, but I'm not judging you. If you say I'm a girl, then I'll call you a girl, even if I don't think you're a girl. It doesn't faze me. That's not what it's about. You know? Just for that, I'd get canceled by some people because that's not enough for them. So, but according to, this is one of the reasons I don't fuck with TikTok. It's one of the reasons why I don't fuck with a lot of communities online. For example, chaos magic. Now, chaos magic is pretty cool and there's a lot of cool people in it, but it also tends to, for whatever reason, chaos magic tends to be more woke, in my experience, than other traditions. Specifically, I mean, if you're comparing to heathenry or something, forget it. Like, heathenry is usually the exact opposite. Sometimes, quite often, too far in the other direction, it actually becomes fascistic or bigoted or racist for sure. Not that that's intrinsic in heathenry. It's just you're more likely to find that there, is all I'm saying. You also find it in voodoo, right? You telling me those voodoo practitioners who say it's a closed tradition and only people who are African or whatever can practice it or do whatever with it? It's a little racist to me. They may not like that, but I'm also not interested in their system, so we're not going to come into a fight, really. The only thing I'm interested in their system is the similarities I see between it and others. That's all. And how it influences others. That's all. I'm not interested in their symbols. Like, I'm not using them. They're not interesting to me. I am interested in, any philosophy that says it belongs to a race. I'm interested in studying at arm's length, not actually adopting. And if I do adopt it, I'll just give it a completely different overlay. You won't know that that's what it was. Because I'm not interested in those things, because they're inherently divisive and they just don't resonate well. So I like things that are, non-dogmatic, like chaos magic, things that are not identity based. But I actually go to a great length now to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't call myself an Advaitin, even though everything I would say, resonates with non-duality or Advaitinism. I am not a Neoplatonist, even though I use a lot of Neoplatonic ideas and teachings. I am not a Gnostic, even though I use Gnosticism and things like that. I don't define myself as that, because I know that what I'm really am is consciousness, or consciousness is the nature of what I am, and what I am is ineffable. It's unspeakable. The same thing you are is unspeakable and ineffable, and none of us are anything. We just all have the nature of consciousness, and that from that center radiates all of these other realizations and things, and all of those are inferior things. The only truth, the only thing, as I said to Siege before, that you can be 100% certain is real and knowledgeable, that you can have knowledge of, is consciousness. Everything else is something consciousness is experiencing. Or that's not the consciousness is doing. See, language is a big fail here, because even saying that is so what are you saying, Thorne? Consciousness is waving and see, this is where it gets all screwy, and this is why it's overthought. On some level, you have to just stop thinking about it and just accept that that's what you are, is consciousness, and that this is consciousness, and that's consciousness, and everything's consciousness. Everything is the divine. Boom, done. And instead of trying to rationalize it all, you just accept, because there is no satisfying way to rationalize it, because it's always going to have a subjective twist in the way you describe it. There's no words for it. You want to know non-duality? Shut up, stop thinking, become aware of consciousness, boom, done. And if you can get aware of pure consciousness without something specific other than awareness to be aware of, you can still have your non-dual awakening. So realizing non-duality can have like different levels, I guess, or different ways of realizing. Traditionally there is the contemplative way, which is neti or apophatism, the negation. That is the cerebral way. You argue yourself into realizing non-duality when there's nothing else that it can be. So it's sort of like a belief evolving into a knowledge, if that makes sense. What's really happening is your belief is being whittled away, because what's really going on is you believe in this world. So cerebral apophatism or neti or via negativa or whatever you want to describe it is a slow, gradual cutting away of belief and destroying your belief in reality with rational arguments, proving that you don't exist, proving that these things don't exist. That's mostly what I do in these videos, is I'm sort of helping you to de-rationalize your beliefs. And once you have de-rationalized them and you realize that they're just reifications of assumptions, at some point, all that's left is this ineffable nothing. And that's all that you could be. And that thing is conscious. It has consciousness. And that's your cerebral realization. The thing is, it doesn't stop there. Once you have a cerebral realization of that, then once that happens, all of this other stuff gets out of the way and you are open to the transcendental, the Gnostic realization. It's sort of like a Looney Tunes video. And Wile E. Coyote's running towards a cliff, and he runs off the cliff to chase the Roadrunner. But he runs off the cliff and into empty space, and until he realizes that he's standing in empty space, he doesn't fall. So in a very similar sense, when you cerebrally negate all of your delusions, just like Wile E. Coyote realizing he's not standing on anything, you suddenly fall into a non-dual realization. You have a complete, now it may be a superficial completeness, you may still have deeper depths and realizations and things and integrations and all that, but the door opens and you step through and you have knowledge, not thinking, not belief. You have direct knowledge of the truth. And then you just work to deepen and integrate that if you want to. You don't have to. This whole idea that you're supposed to learn to be enlightened is nonsense. It supposes that the divine is imperfect until it's the divine again and only the divine. That is such a human, egoistic, hubristic bullshit. This is why I'm not a Buddhist, Zen or otherwise. I'm not a Taoist. I'm not a Hindu or a Vitan or any of those things, because they all have a path that they're on to somehow saving God from himself or herself or itself. That's all it is. It's just another corruption of a very simple realization. And they corrupt it like a carrot on a stick. You must achieve nirvana and then you'll be free. You must achieve moksha. They put this big carrot on the stick and they don't tell you, just like we talked about in the last stream, that it's tied to your ass the whole time. You can just grab it and eat it anytime you want. This whole idea you need to be enlightened and you need to achieve, the goal is to never reincarnate. Bullshit. Bull fucking shit. That's the goal. That's not the goal. There is no goal. There's no purpose, nothing. It is just existence as the divine consciousness that you are. So, cerebral realization is one kind. You have Gnostic or Samadhi or transcendental realization. That's more of a mental state. That's more of a, and generally speaking, it goes hand in hand with the cerebral. You kind of have to do both. You kind of have to do both. I think there's said to be a third kind, which I think, if memory serves, is yogic or behavioral, or is it tantric? It's like ritualized, it's like you're reminding yourself, kind of. I'll have to look it up. But in my way of doing things, my worldview, if you will, my belief system, if you will, not my knowledge system, my belief system, you kind of have to do all of them. You want to do a cerebral realization that leads to, so most people will require some level of cerebral disobjectification, cerebral, negation or neti. So people require some degree of that. That is in tandem with or followed by, or preferably both followed by and in tandem with, certain transcendental techniques that can include or not include meditation, transcendental meditation, psychedelics, entheogens, alcohol, whatever the hell. Near-death experiences, all of those can potentially lead to an awakening. Now, some schools of thought will say that psychedelics themselves don't lead to awakening. And I generally agree, in the sense that psychedelics will kick the door open, but you have to walk through it. So psychedelics will kick the door open. It will help you with an ego dissolution, sure, and it'll help you realize that this reality isn't really real the way you think it is. But to realize the non-dual, to know thyself, to truly know thyself, requires more than just kicking the door open. You got to walk through the door. You know, that's why one of the most important sayings in antiquity is "know thyself." Socrates put it over the door of whatever temple or whatever he was doing. Know thyself. Now, most Western scholars thought it meant to know the body and the mind and all this, to have knowledge of. Know thyself. What are they? Are you your thoughts? Are you your body? Are you your feelings? Are you any of those things? No. Those are things that you are aware of. You are the awareness. To know thyself is to know the void, is to know the unspeakable self through which all things are seen and all things are seen within. That's to know thyself. It has nothing to do with knowing your body and your intellect and your brain. That is like an Aristotelian corruption of that Platonic, that Socratic, of that Socratic realization, that non-dual know thyself. Yeah, CJ says, some walk through the door of psychedelics, many trip in the doorway. It's true. You know, but just like, okay, so let me put it to you like this, okay? Psychedelics is just a chemically induced way of reaching the same states of transcendental consciousness or similar enough via chemicals rather than just meditation. And meditation, I'll have to look this up. I don't know this for sure. I wonder, does transcendental meditation release any of the same chemicals as like DMT or so? I'll have to look this up. It's very possible it does. I don't know. Probably doesn't, but maybe it does. Psychedelics are the door opener. But if I were to take and do a case study of people on these paths, and group A, in addition to whatever else they were doing, they had a cerebral neti-neti, negation, apophatic, de-rationalization. And they're doing that, and they're told, you're God, you're this, that's conscious, what you are. But they're given the whole spiel. They're educated, and they're de-educated on what is. Then you give them transcendental or psychedelics. Okay, it doesn't matter which. Those people are not necessarily guaranteed to, because nothing is cause or effect here, but those people are in a really good thunderstorm to have a non-dual awakening, to get struck by that lightning. Now, somebody who's never had the cerebral side of this, they are just an average person with absolutely no education on spiritual matters whatsoever at all. They were raised in a vacuum of secular, atheistic, whatever. Hardcore, rational, skeptic, atheist, secular worldview. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in anything spiritual, zero, nothing, nada. They think they're a collection of atoms, and that when they die, that's it. They don't have anything else. You hand them psychedelics or a real good transcendental technique, though they may achieve ego death, though they may achieve many things, though they may achieve peace and a samadhi state, They don't achieve liberation, moksha, or total realization. They have a superficial awakening, not a real one. They don't actually, that's not to say that they don't really awaken. I'm saying they don't have a lived awakening. They may, it's like when you go to sleep at night. When you go to sleep at night, you're awakening to your divinity every time. It's not just me saying it. It's not a poetic thing. It is literally when you go to sleep at night, this whole delusion dissolves and you return to oblivion. You return to the absolute. But you don't know that that's a non-dual thing. You don't know that, so it never clicks in your brain. It doesn't click in my brain most of the time. I have to remember, I have to think about it. A lot of the time I have to think about it, and then I go, oh yeah, that state of deep sleep is a blissful state of non-dual self, of non-dual being. It is a blissful non-existence, if you will. Non-existence being a soft word here, not in the hard sense. When you're dead ass asleep, you're not you, as in you're not the person you think you are anymore. You still exist. There is still awareness there. If I splash you with a bucket of cold water, you will wake up. But you don't exist as that person anymore. That person goes away. There's just the most tenuous tether of awareness attached to that. It's like a voice that you might hear over a vast distance over an open field. So if you compare the two groups, if you take a group that has no spiritual education, no philosophical, metaphysical education whatsoever, and you give them the experience of non-duality, they won't awaken. They will just, it's just a weird thing that happened to me. Because when they return to the normal state, ego has reformed and they see it through the ego lens. They haven't learned to dissolve the ego. But someone who has been prepared, when they have the experience, that is the chance for the door not only getting kicked open or pushed open or whatever, but to step through. The stepping through the door is, the metaphor is not that you step through to the other side and then live as a non-dual being. The stepping through the door is the part where you're going through the door, that's the non-dual experience. When you're on the other side, that's a reintegration of that through ego. So opening the door and not stepping through means you haven't integrated the experience of the door opening. It's just a cool moment in your life. Oh, I went to this party and my friend slipped me some really good DMT and I had an ego disillusionment and I saw the machine elves and it was good. Like Terence McKenna as a good example. Terence McKenna had a lot of the experiences. Those psychedelic experiences taught him so much about the non-dual, but it never clicked as non-duality for him. Because it was never something that was, he never stepped through that door. And he stepped through a lot of other doors. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't fucking around. Terence McKenna fried his brain on that shit, I'm sure. A true shaman in almost every sense, but didn't get that thing because when ego reformed, he stayed in the ego. So he had ego disillusion, but he just thought it was a cool mental trick. It never clicked with him that that's who he really was the consciousness, not the person. It never clicked that consciousness is all anything is. He still had an egoistic literalism to his, as much as he transcended the symbolic linguistic nature of reality, at least according to what I've listened to him from, It never clicked to him that non-dual. He got the whole that reality is illusory, that this is like Maya, that this is, he got all that, but he never quite clicked it into I am consciousness and all that I experience is consciousness. Now, if he did hit a non-dual state, I never heard it in his lectures. I don't think he ever got the non-dual click. That's right, Viril. If you're alive, you'll always have inner crap. But here's the thing. So let me read what you said. If you're alive, then you'll always have inner crap that has to be worked out. No saints on this planet. The only true saints are the ones who accept all their shadows. Here's the problem with what you're saying. This idea of there being saints or not saints is, it is a dualistic one-upsmanship game that is entirely fictional. It's not that there are no saints on this planet. It's that saints don't exist. Neither do sinners. The people who are saints and sinners don't exist. None of those things. Saints and sinners are perspectives on the same ultimate thing. There's no one that is a sinner, no one that is a saint. No Malice asks, do we have the same consciousness or does it differ individually? There's no individuals. There is just consciousness. Again, the hardcore of non-dual realization is a form of cosmic solipsism. It's the realization that all these other people, including the person you think you are, don't exist. There's no other individuals to have consciousness. There's just consciousness that takes the form of yourself and other people and so on. But it's all the same consciousness. It's all consciousness that comes on as these other things. The idea that there's other individuals, that's the illusion. There's only the transcendent conscious, the thing which has no name, cannot be described, right? God can't be named. God can't be given a visage. There shall be no idols because God cannot be idolized. God is all idols and none of them. God transcends both. That's what you are. You're that God. That God has no identity. It's got none of those things. So individuals are something in consciousness, not things that consciousness is within. So when you say, do we all have the same consciousness or does it all differ individually? There is consciousness, but no people to have it. So one extremist view of it would be saying that D.H. Thorne doesn't exist, neither does Malice. There's only consciousness, and that consciousness as a spotlight is centered in an experience that looks like it's looking at the world from my perspective. Let me put it to you like this again. Let's go back to that dream analogy. You go to sleep tonight, and you dream that you are you being chased by Bigfoot. When you're being chased by Bigfoot, does Bigfoot have consciousness of you? Do you have consciousness of Bigfoot? Does the you that you think you are have consciousness? All of those are no. There's consciousness experiencing that dream and is experiencing that dream from the limited perspective of being within the one who's chased. But the one who's chased and the chaser, neither one is real. Not as those things. And my dog's trying to get killed. Hold on. Excuse me, sweetheart. What are you doing? I don't think Mama would appreciate that. Go to bed. I don't know how you get these things. Come on. Come on. Come on. Go to bed. Come on. Come on. All right, that's my alarm that says it's time to go to bed. Anyway, guys, I think it's time for me to go. I want to thank you guys for joining me and talking with me and whatever you're getting out of this. One of the things that's going to happen is I'm going to have to, at some point, so I could admit that there's a sort of obsession that I've had for a while, and that is trying to express these certain transcendental realizations. And there's a certain nihilism that can come with that if you're not careful. There's a nihilism that comes with realizing that this is cosmically solipsistic in a lot of ways. When you look at someone you love and you realize that they don't exist. I'm not saying that the experience doesn't exist. Obviously it does. When you realize that they don't exist as a person, that that's just part of you coming on that way. There is a twinge of nihilism there. And it's actually got a couple of layers to it. The first layer is, oh, so nobody's real, so what's the point? Now, you do work through this stuff. I'm not saying that that lingers. That's still an egoistic perspective. I'm just saying it does hit you from time to time. You can fall back into like a nihilistic, egoistic, non-dual state. It does happen sometimes. It's a danger of it. It's a very real one. You can also look at the world and go, okay, well, if this is all consciousness and I'm aware that it's all consciousness and I am consciousness, so I am the dreamer, doesn't that mean that I should be able to dream lucidly and have control over the dream and literally make things fly around and teleport and do whatever I want? Well, that's a good question. Is there a reason why you don't? Or do you, and you just don't treat it as that? So when you go to sleep tonight and you dream that you're flying, is that you really flying? Is there any difference? Well, when you're dreaming, you don't know the difference. When you're dreaming, you don't know that you're not dreaming or that you are dreaming. When you're dreaming that you're flying, that's flying. That's why Carlos Castaneda, one of the greatest moments in that one book, The Yaqui Way, I think is the one I'm thinking of. He describes having a moment where he transforms into a bird. And he asks Don Juan, was I really a bird in that moment? He says, well, that's a stupid question. Of course you were a bird. He says, yes, but did my body really become a bird? And he says, you didn't have a body at that moment. You don't have a body when that happens. You were a bird. That's when you were a bird. You weren't a person. You were a bird. Yes, but did my body? That's a stupid question. You're asking a stupid question because he still didn't get it. That's why that's one of my favorite books that he did. Just that alone teaches you so much. That one exchange is just, that's the whole show in one exchange, the whole thing. And so this idea that being awakened non-dualistically speaking means that suddenly you have the power to do anything. Well, define a lucid dream. Is the definition of a lucid dream the ability to change the dream? No, the definition of a lucid dream is to know you're dreaming. That's it. To have power over the dream, that's a separate thing entirely. When we say you have power over the dream, well, you're always controlling the dream. So what you're saying is, can you control your will? Well, how can your will be controlled? What would control the will except the will? So if you are not making things levitate and you can't teleport, it just means it's not your will. It's your ego that desires it. All right, so I'm continuing, but I should be going. But I've got to let go of some of this obsession with trying to elucidate these topics so much. At some point, I've got to let go and get back to the fun part, which is gods and magic and spooky stuff. I got to get back to that because, you know, that at some point, like, you burn out on those things and you got to come back to them, and you come in and out of them when you need them. And at some point that'll happen. I promise. That's right. Take your own advice. Let go. Exactly, CJ. The problem is I'm trying to write a book about these things, so it's hard because I'm feeling really obsessively attached to trying to get them right. And that's half the reason I haven't finished the book, is because I've written and rewritten the same things so many times. It really is like Einstein said, and I don't think it was just Einstein, that, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still hammering at the book. And I should probably just let go of this whole thing. So yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, again, like Neon Cicada just said, I appreciate everyone that participated in the chat tonight. Thanks for being mad chill. I appreciate all you guys. Hopefully nobody misunderstood things, you know, and didn't get it twisted, and everybody had a good time and understands where I'm coming from, and that this is just a sharing on my part. And, you know, you guys should have your own channels if you can, and talk about things and ask questions and research these things. And you're going to have the time of your life, whether you mean to or not. That much I can promise you. All right, guys, until next time, this is DH Thorne signing off. I got no major announcements till probably after Christmas, so see you then.